Welcome back, everybody. This is Mark 148. My name is Greg. I am the Bat Daddy 52. I'm joined with my co-hosts and friends, and we have a ton of stuff to talk about tonight. It's kind of hard after getting my ass kicked in trivia last night with Ross. Like we we got handled
It
pretty
wasn't
well with
geek
that.
trivia.
I want to
geek
hear
trivia.
this.
You're right. We're going to talk about that.
You guys don't have to explain yourself. I want to hear this.
We're going to talk about it definitely. But you know what? The night ended in Jameson and Old Fashions, so not too bad. So good deal.
A
lot of stuff to talk about.
I'm so upset.
Every Thursday, you just got to make the hike to Kernersville, North Carolina. So,
dude, I was there Wednesday. I kid you not. I was there Wednesday. I kid you not.
Petition them to change the day that they do trivia. That's all I can tell you to do.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so we got the Sandman to talk about tonight, She-Hulk, Lower Decks, and then, of course, we're going to end the show like we always do with some Hot D. So I'm ready to talk about it. We got a lot of stuff going on, but before we get into the shows, we'll do some news, as always. Well, actually, I'm sorry. I totally skipped introducing my co-host here while I was doing the intro. Sarah, what's up?
Hey, fellas.
How are you?
I've really been missing you guys this week. This has been a week to really test the fortitude, shall we say? Because I'm whoo, that's all I gotta say. But what I'm really excited, because Greg, even though as much as I love you, Ross, we'll get you introed later. I want to introduce this other lady that is with us this evening because I'm so excited she decided to join us. Lisa, oh my gosh, love you more than you could imagine. I'm so excited. Yeah, Ross, you can wait. So,
oh, Sarah, that is so sweet. You're such a beautiful person, like inside and out. Thank you so much. Really appreciate y'all inviting me back and really happy to be back. Yeah, I second what you said, Sarah. It has been a week. I was looking forward to almost didn't make it tonight. It's been such a week, but I'm here. So I'm really happy to be here and excited to see everybody again and to chat. So let's do it.
And now my boy Ross. Love you.
You're muted.
So you guys can take all the thunder. That's good. My week's been about the same, and I'm ready. Like the weekend needs to set in.
It's like I want to leave like work behind. I mean, it's like one of those where you just like put it in like just like third and gun it and just get as much momentum behind you as you can and like just tear out. It's just it's crazy. It's crazy.
Indeed.
Anyways,
before we get into news, let's go ahead and straighten this out. Okay, so Kernersville, North Carolina, there's a bar downtown, and they have this flyer or this banner up. And I guess Ross on the internet told me about it. It's geeks who drink beer, and I was like, okay, so it's geek trivia is how they describe it. Geek trivia. So we plan. We're like, all right, cool. Let's go check it out. This is the town me and Ross grew up in. Let's go check it out. So we get there last night, and it is it was trivia. It was not geek trivia. It was just general trivia. There was geography. There was all kinds of stuff in there. It was insane. I think the only thing they didn't have was math, and I'm glad they didn't because I couldn't believe it.
Did you have pencil and paper?
Yeah. Well, there's absolutely no way that people weren't cheating. Because
totally.
The way it works is it's a limited number. Or like you can have as many people on a team as you want. And one person logs in on their phone and you answer all the questions on the phone. Well, obviously, there's people, if you get some of these were difficult questions. Obviously, if you get every single question right, and of course, this is me just conjecture. I don't know for sure. If you get every question right on all 8 rounds, you probably cheated.
And look, there was it was a widespread. I mean, this was straight shocking.
Ideas what kind of questions you guys had because y'all never told me that.
One round they did music.
They did music, and it was like they would play a song and they would say if you could name the song and like name the song is one point, the band's another. They had one. The first round was like something with bananas, so every answer had A or BAN in it, and they just asked random questions. There was geography, movies, like all kinds of different stuff, and it was just kind of that the whole way. There were sports questions, which was crazy. But, I mean, I guess the definition of geek has become a little more broad.
Yeah.
Because it's more socially accepted now.
Well, normally it would be like more like, like pop culture, more like.
And that's the vibe that we were thinking. Or definitely me.
Yeah.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. It was still fun. It was fun trivia, and it was a good time. And I'd be willing to go back and do it again. I don't know if it's gonna be an every Thursday thing for me, but it's something fun to do, and it was a cool bar. I had more fun afterwards.
Nathan. Sorry, I had to say hey to Nathan.
But yeah, so that was the trivia thing. Now we did end up, I think, there was 9 teams. I think we ended up 6th of 9. But the gap between us and one was pretty astronomical. I think we had like 18 points, and like, of course, the number 1 and number 2, who obviously had to have been cheating, had a perfect score. Like, there's no way you have a perfect score, But no prize, no money, so it was just for fun, good time.
Not angry about it either.
Not angry about it. That's right. That's right. But I had to put that to bed because I know we were talking about it. I know, like, we were in round 1, I think, when we texted you last night, Sarah, and I was like, we're getting our asses kicked after round 1. And then after that,
that's the thing about it. I asked about it. You guys didn't tell me anything else. I was like, oh God, how bad is it?
Well, trying to keep up with it because plus it's all on your phone and like
the beer kicked
it was just.
Too, I think, so.
It's rapid fire
and all that kind of good stuff.
I was drinking in a stout, an 11% stout. It was fantastic. But
what was it? What was it? Do you remember what it was?
It's a local brew. This place we went to where they brew all their stuff there. It's a Kernersville brewery, so it was all local stuff. I couldn't tell you the name, but I think it was like Into the Darkness or something like that. I think was the name of the one I had.
Because I'm all about that. Yeah, I'm all about that 100%.
But yeah, it's fun times. If you ever do some trivia, it's always a good time. But
so every Thursday night. Every Thursday night is that
every Thursday night, 7:00. So if you ever
that's what I miss about Greenville.
It's great. We'll make a point to do it.
Because back in Greenville, they would it was one of the breweries I had downtown. I had been to like a Star Trek trivia. I'd been to a couple of Marvel trivias. Oh, I miss that. I miss that.
Lisa, besides here, have you ever done trivia anywhere?
I have, but I'm very bad at it.
No, we realized last night we were too. So
it's like you freeze up. It's like I know it, but damn it, somebody got me before. Yeah,
I've been to like Harry Potter ones, Star Trek ones, etc. And like I should honestly kill those, but I don't. I'm just really bad. It's embarrassing. I drag the team down. So Lisa, I'm usually moral support.
Let me ask you about the Star Trek ones. Is it normally like the original series and like TNG? Because I'd like kill it on like Voyager or DS9, but everything is like original series. Yeah, but I don't really go that far back.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I think my biggest thing is a lot of times at trivia they'll ask about like the ships and things like that, and I'm very bad at retaining that kind of information. I know the characters really well and things like that, but you want to know ships, you got to ask my husband, he was not a Trekkie like before he met me, but I introduced him to a lot of the stuff I watch, and now he's like building an Enterprise model now. So he kind of came full circle, but he remembers
which one? Which
original series.
Okay.
It was at like Hobby Lobby or something. Okay. So he bought one, and he bought like a kit to like add the lights and stuff. Like he's serious. So he went from not watching at all to being fully converted.
That's what's so funny because I always have I've got a Voyager like ornament and a Klingon Bird of Prey ornament that I always hang on my tree every Christmas.
Aww. I have like a geek tree and then like a regular Christmas tree that has like the like DC ornaments and stuff. So
we got it all on ours.
One Batman and one DC. That's it. And that one DC like ball. That's it. So, it's okay though, because the Batman always hangs on top.
He's like, that's all I'm allowed. That's all I get.
Okay, all right. Well, so that's the trivia. And good times. Maybe we'll do it again. Hopefully we'll finish better than 6th of 9, but we'll see what happens.
At least you were 7 of 9.
There you go. Actually, that would have been pretty cool to be 7 of 9. Like I would have said we did that on purpose then. I'm like, we're such geeks. We did 7 of 9 on purpose. How do you like that? And I got that reference.
I was going to say, and what's really important is that we've come this far. We've come this far.
Greg, I'm so proud of you. I have no idea.
Yeah, so there we go. All right, well, let's talk about some news then. Ross, is there anything big out there that you know of? Like, I know there's some Warner Brothers kind of going down the shithole news.
Yeah,
but beyond that, I don't really know a lot.
That's been Warner Brothers is owning like the bad news cycle, and not in the way that it normally ends up being. This whole financial thing is all that it is a promise that they made to the shareholders to save money. That's what this whole thing is, because
they didn't
apparently they've
deliver
just
on, right?
been. What's that?
That they haven't delivered on, right?
So
I mean,
now they're delivering it by changing everything, and by changing everything, like not bringing out movies, taking that loss, turning around, and what they pushed Shazam to Aquaman's date, so that's next. Oh, what is that? St. Patrick's Day, I think, and then it's Christmas for Aquaman 2. So I mean, they're still coming, but I mean,
pushed
dude,
back,
like
yeah. Well, I saw Momoa was pretty pissed off about that. Like, it's getting to a point where, like, what's going on? You know, I know we're probably never going to see the Flash movie, but
what property is not, or not property? What movie is not doing it from DC? I mean, they have all been sitting on the bench, keeping it warm for like the next thing that's going to happen. So I don't know. It's funny when you have Discovery that just decided to come out, and when they said that they were going to save money, they just came in with a machete, and they're just taking it to town. I don't know a better way to put it. So,
well, so question, like, I guess the other option to save money would be to raise prices. Would be the only kind of thing, which is what everybody else seems to be doing, is gradually raising prices. So, like, are they in such a big deal that like raising prices wouldn't help? Like, they've just got to cut all this stuff and push everything back?
Well,
Because
aren't
the
they
article I
doing
read
that?
says that Warner Brothers can't afford to produce a movie in 2022.
Wow.
But-
Well,
so
it's already cost like $14.99 a month, so they're one of the higher priced streaming services to begin with. Y'all watch that show Succession? Like, I keep thinking, like, just how bad this deal is. It kind of reminds me of Succession. Just, I don't know, like you're saying, a bunch of people at the top in a room deciding things, and everyone else reacting to it so poorly. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really. Maybe because they streamed all their releases, and Disney and other studios chose not to do what they did, where they released their whole catalog during the pandemic. I don't know.
you know what I just realized? I am the problem. How much did you say HBO Max was? $14.99?
Mm-hmm.
I just pay for it every month automatically. Don't even think about it. I didn't know that.
How much I'm paying for.
Like, if you
I
told me
love
that
it. I love
beforehand,
HBO Max.
yeah.
It's. I mean, I cannot tell you like how many Turner Classic movies I've watched, how many other movies. It does feel like an endless catalog, and I guess maybe that was hurting them. I don't know, but it was great for me.
Yeah.
Well, what they did was, I mean, under AT&T, HBO was given like free reign because they thought they could throw money at and fix the problem, and they wanted to turn HBO Max into a thing. They wanted to be competitive. They wanted to buy all the properties to bring the things to HBO. Now, I mean, like box office and all the other stuff, that's a little bit different. The streaming service itself, HBO, is probably going to go away, and they're probably going to try to find a way to put everything on their Discovery streaming service. Just because now that Discovery is the new daddy in town, they're going to own everything, and they're just probably going to push it all over there. Where they have lost money is just frivolous spending over the past however many years they've been with AT&T. And I don't know who made the decisions over there, but we keep talking about people that got fired from DC. They got fired because they were given money and no results, more or less. So now we're seeing a culmination of all that kind of come into play here, and the shareholders realized that they were spending a crap ton of money, but not getting the box office numbers that they wanted. Because apparently they would come out and say that we're going to make Batman, and it's going to come out and put all these other numbers up, and like that's all good and well, and like it does, but they're shooting for the stars. They're not like being happy with where they're at. What they want to do is they want to blow people like Marvel and stuff like that out of the box office, and they're competing, but they just don't have the numbers.
Right. Well, I mean, it takes time to get there, and I wonder when you say that, where you talk about how maybe just frivolous spending, I wonder if maybe that's just putting money into shows that aren't successful. I think would be a big part of that. And we do always criticize Netflix for the way they run their analytics and the shows they cancel. So I'm wondering, like, maybe are we wrong? Like, are we wrong to judge Netflix like that? Because although they've gotten rid of a lot of shows that I liked, and I don't know why, maybe they know, they're not catering to just me. They know something that I don't know, So is that the fall that HBO Max now has that Netflix has been avoiding by pissing us off?
It feels like each studio, like, Netflix, HBO, they each make the mistake of like, I'm going to make 20 million movies and like throw millions of dollars at these tiny movies, but then expect them to almost perform on the level that like, something in the theater performs. And a couple of times they perform really well. And then you have like other films that don't. And I mean, like, to me, when I saw that they pulled a lot of their original films off the streaming service, I was kind of like, yeah, I wonder how smart that was to make all those movies. I don't know.
Right. I mean, it's hit or miss with all this stuff, I mean, you never really know what's going to hit. I feel like with the climate that we live in, with all the streaming stuff that we have, that you could think almost anything would be successful. You just got to put it in the right spot. It's like-minded people want to watch this network because they like the stuff that's on this network type deal. Because I know a lot of people who just do network by network every month, or excuse me, streaming service every month. So like they'll do a month of Netflix, then cut it off, then do a month of this and cut it off. And they talk about how much more they enjoy certain
I've been
months.
eating up. I mean, Paramount, it's got everything else.
Yep, killing it over at Paramount Plus. Even new Beavis and Butthead. It's great.
My son
Still
has
haven't
been
watched it.
asking,
Oh,
I mean,
it's so
begging to see that. And I'm like, no, I can't.
The
can't
new movie is
Yes.
lol. I
can't.
was dying, but the show is also great.
I can't.
Nathan says as long as HBO Max keeps the Thrones universe and catalog of DC animation, I'm good. Yeah.
Didn't they pull DC animation though? Not all of it, but didn't they pull a ton of it off of there? And so actually, something he was talking about earlier too. I mean, I think what they're trying to do is suppress the HBO name to a. I'm not saying they won't use that platform, but you're right. Like, it will be completely rebranded. Discovery Plus is their other one, right? I think that's the name of the other one. What they want to do is brand everything under Discovery. Maybe I don't know. They want to take HBO and treat them like Warner Brothers. They don't want HBO to be the lead name, the lead title of everything. Where they put all their properties is one thing. All I'm saying is that at the end of the day, the merger is for Discovery to come out on top, is what it is. And rather than AT&T calling HBO, anything with AT&T in it, they're going to come to some sort of decision on that. I don't.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, as us here fans, like, what excites you more, to hear Warner Brothers is coming out with something new, a new movie or show, or to hear there's something awesome on HBO Max, or HBO is coming out with something awesome? Like, just gut instinct, what would you rather watch? Or is it not that at all for y'all, just content?
Yeah.
Like,
really
does the
depends on
name
what it
brand
is.
sell you
I'm
on something? If
content.
HBO comes out with something, does it sell you because it's HBO?
No.
Okay.
I-
I'm not gonna
Look,
lie. I mean,
It did. Look, before the streaming wars were massive, I mean, it was Sopranos, it was, all like HBO owned great content. And it has completely changed now because, that's why I say HBO was the one who was the powerful name behind all that stuff. And then it turned into like now having HBO Max, it's all of the properties that's on that app. So that means it takes on a totally different meaning now.
I'm just excited that HBO Max is going to have the Elvis movie starting September 2nd, which is this Friday.
Yes, I can't wait to see that. Now I
I
can't convince my
love that
husband to
movie.
watch it, but
Okay.
he says the runtime's a bit much for him, which I kind of
No,
understand.
dude, no. You get if you love Elvis any form or fashion, you will be sucked into this movie. And
I'm
Runtime
is- the new one?
excited. I
Yeah.
like the
The new one?
director too.
That was the one that was playing on the opposite screen in the drive-in I went to go see Love and Thunder, and it looked very interesting. And I've heard things about it. Good
Oh,
things
my
about
kids
it.
loved it. I mean,
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Well, especially the boy, he loves Elvis. Especially when we went to Myrtle
Aw.
Beach, we went to Legends in Concert, and then they had like an Elvis impersonator that opened and closed it, and he was fantastic. I mean, it was like It was like watching Elvis. I mean, it was insane. It was. You've got good ones, but then you have great ones, and you have like kind of mediocre ones. This guy was a great one. He was really good. So yeah, I highly recommend the Elvis movie. It was fantastic, fantastic.
I'm not gonna
It
lie.
still seems
When
like
I looked at it, I didn't think that he looked like Elvis to me. I was like, that's a very odd look.
You get sucked in. I mean, it's more
If
because
the acting's good, I'm cool with it. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I thought it was fan. I mean, I you know, hey, dude, I grew up watching Elvis movies. You know, like Love Me Tender. You know, that kind of thing. I watched the movies. So seeing this kid, you know, doing his thing with it, I was you had to kind of look at it a couple of times like that's really close. That's
Right.
really super close. So it's I was sold 100%. I was sold. And you know me, I'm very critical on certain things, but I was sold on that. That was really
Well, it was in
I recommend.
theaters, what, 2 weeks ago? So it'll be streaming in a week, probably. 'Cause that's the way
Well,
it works now.
well,
Yeah, it's coming
initially,
out soon.
yeah,
actually.
initially I thought it was supposed to come out I think end of August. So it was supposed to come out like a couple of weeks late, you know, earlier. But I don't know if they just kind of kept it. But now I see that it's finally releasing September 2nd
I
on
think
HBO
maybe
Max.
for the holiday weekend, you know,
It may be. I don't know. I
since the
never know
5th
what
is.
their thought process is. I'm like, just release the damn thing.
Yeah.
You've already got my money.
no one does.
You've already got my money.
So real quick in the chat, Rick and Nathan are talking about some HBO stuff, and you know, they're talking about shows they love on and what brought it to it. And Nathan says HBO is still a way bigger brand than with a worldwide recognition. Are you meaning than Warner Brothers? Because while I don't think people maybe know, and that may be it, people don't know a movie is made by Warner Brothers, but I think Warner Brothers is bigger overall than HBO, isn't it?
Well, Warner Brothers has a much further reach. That's yeah.
But he may be right. It may be more recognizable, HBO, as opposed to Warner Brothers, because I don't really care. When I was younger, at least, I didn't care about who made movies. I just went to go see them. And now I don't so much. You know, I'm not going to go see a movie because somebody makes it, or like based on who makes it. But I pay more attention to it now. So, all right. Any other stuff on this Warner Brothers kind of tanking?
No, I mean, I don't think they're tanking. I think what they're really doing is just they are in
Consolidating.
yeah, they're pulling the
Polite way to
resources
put it.
together. Like they got to come up with a plan for everything moving forward, and rightfully so, because when you turn around and make such a merger like that, you know, it changes everything about everything. So
You know what sucks about it is they have DC, and they can do with DC what Marvel did, and they can resurrect their studio with just one property if they do it right, and if they pick a plan and they just go with it. And it's so irritating they have the answer right there in front of them, and they just don't pull the trigger and do it. You know, at least that's what I think. I don't know.
I know that they don't have any more patience to keep doing what they're doing. And so that is proven. And what I personally hate is that they just can't get the crap that they want to put out. And like I say, it's all financial, because at the end of the day, the whole point for moving the movies and getting rid of some movies is to tighten the belt for the 2022 year. Now they want to push everything towards next year. All it does is keep stringing out their ability to create new things.
Right.
Because we're still stuck in the old, you know? If they go and change everything about DC, and I mean anything, Warner Brothers, anything else that, like, whatever falls underneath that umbrella, whatever they go and decide to change is going to be like, it has to be well thought out. And if you keep the old in, what are you doing? I don't understand.
Well, I think going forward with a well thought out plan is a good rule of thumb in any walk of life.
In life,
They just need to hop on it. I guess, you know, don't be so afraid of failing, I guess is what I could say. You know, pull the trigger and go for it, you know? Like, I think that they could have been successful in a lot of things they did. I'm speaking strictly in the DC universe right now. They could have been successful in a lot of things they did if you would have just continued to go that route instead of continually changing what you're doing. Stop trying to make it better. Run with what you got.
That's everyone.
If it ends up, yeah, you're right. You're right. It is, but
You know, like Tony Gilroy's making Andor, right? Or made Andor, and you know he was brought in at the end of Rogue One to fix, what, rather than just seeing what could happen. We're not going to know the way that things were going to be underneath Gareth Edwards, because Tony got the recognition for coming in and changing that movie. That happens in everything,
Right.
All of this shit that we like, it just happens. So I know you're right. You want to fail, but you want to be able to fail. I guess you don't want to.
Right.
If you're able to fail, the problem is that they want to be done failing.
Yeah.
They want to move on.
I guess everybody does. That's a good point to be at. Be done failing. So, so Tim Tizzy from the C3.
Hey,
what's up, man? Good. Lisa.
What up, Tim?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Lisa said something. So, and yes, I am still watching the game on the other screen. I have it on. I'm kind of viewing what's happening, but I'm so doing both at once. But
multitasking.
That's right. Well, do we have anything else we want to say about that? That's the only really big news thing I have, because once again, I've been so busy just trying to watch the shows to cover this. It is a lot. So, and we don't break news anyway. We just give opinions on what we hear. So, that's kind of the deal. We're just giving kind of opinions on what's going on. So, I say we hop into a show then. We got 4 shows tonight. Let's go ahead and knock out the Sandman. Because I know Lisa has seen a little bit of it. Sarah's seen a little bit of it. I just completed it, and Ross has seen all, but like a week and a half ago. Like as soon as it came out, you saw the whole thing. I've listened to the audio drama. Huh? Yeah, exactly. I've listened to the audio drama season 1. I bought season 2. I haven't listened to it yet. So I kind of knew how things were going anyway, but still a phenomenal series in my opinion. But I want to get to y'all's opinions. Lisa, I haven't heard anything from you about this. How far have you gotten into it?
I'm only like 3 episodes in, but I love it so far. I mean, to be honest, Sandman is one of those comics that I've always thought about reading. People have told me to read it my whole life, and I never have. So I was interested right away. And I'm a big fan of Constantine, so that's probably the only character I'm familiar with a little bit. Some of the backstory, but yeah, I've loved what I've seen so far. I think the casting is really good, even though I don't really know a lot about the characters. I still feel like, you can just tell when casting's right, and it's really good, and it's a very engaging show, and it's interesting. But I agree with what Sarah was saying earlier. Morpheus does have a very soothing voice, so it can make you a little sleepy.
It's very Robert Pattonish, shall we say? He just gives me that kind of vibe.
I could see.
I guess that's why it's, or kind of like the goth vibe. That just very just.
He actually probably could have played that role. To be honest with you, I think
like in the very first 2, it was like he was just sitting there in that and just like staring. I was like, dude, you're communicating to me, and you're just not even saying a word. It's nuts.
Yeah, I agree. He's got good instincts, and the aesthetics of the film that you're kind of the show that you're kind of touching on. I really like the look and the mood. Just it all works really well together.
But I'm like, if he's supposed to be Dream, I'm like, it makes sense to me. I mean, he can't be like overboard, like flamboyant or anything like that. So I'm like, you got to be kind of chill. You got to be kind of. Now, the only thing that I'm really having problems with, and like I said, I'm like in the God, I don't know if I've got the season 4 or the episode 4 yet, but Patton Oswalt as the bird is just throwing me off. I'm like, that's just kind of throwing me off a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe it's just a talking bird. I don't know. It's just
it's his voice. It's what
like
it
Eternals,
is.
It's like
insanely
that
recognizable.
One, It's like, well, it was kind of like, that's one thing that kind of threw me off of like Age of Ultron, when Ultron with that voice. It's like it was so recognizable. It was just hard for me to kind of see it as a character with a different face. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just have problems with stuff like that. But like I said, I really haven't gotten too far in it. But that's the only thing that's just kind of like that feels out of place to me.
I guess just to add some lightness, maybe.
And that may be the case. That may be the case. But I'm like, I don't know.
No, Lisa's right. I think that what they were going for and the way that it kind of came out didn't exactly do the same exact thing together. So I the recognizability of his voice is true, but it's just that when his voice comes on, like it's so
It's so
like
harsh to me. It's
yeah,
like
it's
just
just
so
right
like
there.
everything else is kind of soft. It's just kind of like an easy tone, and that's what it
Mhm.
kind of like hit me. But then it was like, I'm like, oh, okay, just kind of wakes you up a little bit. But maybe it's a
Yeah.
good thing. Maybe it's just like that little bit of, I don't know, just a little bit of difference or whatnot. But that's the only thing that just kind of is just. But like I said, it may ease off like
One day
once I
it'll
get
come back.
into it. So
Well, I know I had a guy at work was telling me about the reason why he didn't watch it. He likes Neil Gaiman, but the reason why he didn't watch it was because he didn't like the he didn't like the look of the character who played Dream. And I was like, dude, you got to get over that. Like get over that because he does a good job. You know?
I'm not a fan of that. Like I
Okay,
and
and I get that.
that's a me thing, and like I have no problem. Like I said, I thought the show was really good when it kicked in the second half.
Yeah,
I'm going
episode
to tell you
5 it
right
really
now,
picks up. Yeah,
for the general audience of people that I know that watch things, everyone suffered on the first couple of episodes.
Mhm.
Everyone complained that they started the first episode and when they got to the end of it, they were like, I think I don't want to watch this show. So really, this is to me, this is definitely much more of a cult following style.
I would agree.
I think
They
I don't think it's the fact I don't want to see it. It's just the fact of when I choose to watch it, it's like literally right before bed.
Yeah. Oh,
Because it's really
I'm not talking about you. I'm
but
talking about
that's
just like
well,
general people that I've asked about it.
they've tried to bring this to screen a number of times, and it's actually all been like right on the cusp of being like filmed a number of times, and something's always happened that's pulled the plug on it. But I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I think it kind of is a cult following. I wouldn't know anything about it had Chris and Nathan not recommended the audio drama to me, which is fantastic. James McAvoy plays Dream, the voice of Dream in the audio drama, which is phenomenal. Which is why I think this guy nailed it. I think he did like in my mind when I picture it, I could see him in that role, and I think that set it up well for me. The first 4 episodes set up the universe. I hate telling somebody you have to watch half of the first season before you really start to like it. But I don't think it's a matter of starting to like it. It's after the 4th episode, the universe is set up. You know everybody's roles for the most part, and like what they can do, what's going on, what the problem is. Then it starts to tackle, I guess, what the books go into, and like more of the stories of Sandman. So I recommend to everybody get to the 5th episode. The 5th episode is one of the strangest episodes, but it is the first like world building episode, or excuse me, like story building episode after they've created the universe. You know?
Yeah, that's what I think. I fall really indecisive about. They could have cold opened this whole entire thing and really started telling the story from the beginning.
Right.
And
you could have had little bits and pieces from 1 through 4 in there. Yeah. And the
so
book,
maybe I
that's
don't
the way
have a
the book
problem
is.
much other than the directing. Maybe the
Yeah.
directing is my problem. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. And I probably would not have watched it the whole entire thing if it wasn't for knowing a little bit I do, and everyone tells me that I need to get into it. So like I gave it the honest shot. It just took me a minute right off the bat. Like after those couple episodes, I just needed to figure out what was going on. But once they got to the story, I was on board.
Yeah. And the way it ends too, like I just finished it a little while ago. I didn't watch the animated one they dropped after that, but the way it ends, it sets up where, okay, we can tell this for a while. You can have a lot of stories out of this. It gives you I have an established world. I know the rules. Let's go. And I love that about it. I know Neil Gaiman is pissed off with Netflix because they haven't approved season 2 yet. And I read an article the other day that it may be on a different streaming service next if they won't approve season 2, which I don't know if he has the kind of swing to do that. It was a good show, but I know you've been trying to get the show on for a long, long time. I don't know if the first time you got it on, I would do that. I think it should have a second season, but I've thought that about a few shows on Netflix that don't. So we'll see what happens with it.
I don't know what kind of rights agreements they make anymore. I mean, like he owns the rights to the character, but as it comes to the live screen, like does Netflix own the like the visual rights, like the live action rights?
I don't know. All I know is he signed a 10-episode
Not
deal.
owned, but
like,
yeah.
That was all it was. And then after that,
I would
it was
definitely
kind of
assume
up
that
in the
he
air.
did not sign anything away that didn't need to be signed away.
Oh no, yeah.
So
Yeah, I wouldn't have asked him. So are y'all gonna finish like Lisa, Sarah? I know Sarah, you said it's just a matter of timing as far as when you start to watch it. Lisa, is this something you want to continue to watch? Like, do you guys want to finish the series? Has it caught your attention enough?
Absolutely. I think this weekend I was in a cabin in Austin and didn't have strong Wi-Fi. Otherwise, I would have seen more. My cabin happened to not have TV, so I was trying to watch it on my iPad, and yeah, it was really roughing it. And I mean, I know that's very like first world problem to be like, I'm in this beautiful cabin in the woods, but I can't
Right.
watch Sandman. But it was hard for me, and so yeah, I think that I will continue watching it. I'm probably going to watch it after this, to be honest.
Nice. I think you'll enjoy it. Like I said, get
I
into
look
it,
forward to
get
it.
the
I just
story.
need to find a time during the day so that way I can like just not.
So Morpheus doesn't enter your dreams, or
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
Because it's been
Can,
tough.
can I tell you what helped me a ton that I've just discovered recently? That's been fantastic. Is you can watch Netflix at 1.5 speed.
I can't do that, dude. I gotta watch it normal
There's no
speed.
way.
I'm
I gotta
telling
watch
you,
it.
There's no
I thought it
way.
was going to be crazy too, but it really doesn't change it that much. It just makes it faster. It makes a 45-minute show a 22-minute show or 20-minute show. Like
I feel like I missed something.
I
Yeah.
feel like I would too. I'm telling you, I really did think, but like even the animation, like when I watch it, like when people talking and moving, I'm like, this almost feels normal. It really does. Like it almost feels like you could just be at this speed in real life and be okay. It's not.
Okay, Greg. I'm
I don't
worried
know.
about you. I'm
I
worried
just
about
love
you.
it, and it's on Netflix. I'm gonna do it. I've checked every other streaming service I have. I couldn't figure out how to do it, but if it's on Netflix, I'm gonna do that.
Uh-huh.
So, all right. Well, anything else about Sandman? I know we were trying to be non-spoilerish about it because y'all haven't seen it yet, but we may hit on Sandman after y'all check it out. If y'all want to talk about it again,
We'll just have like a
maybe
quick like
wrapping it up.
review, like spoiler,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
wrap up, shall we say, of like when we finally get to the end of it and be like, finally.
Rick says he's watching The Boys. Got started
Oh,
knocking out 3
God.
episodes. Rick, are you in the first season of The Boys? Because if you are, buddy, you are in for a ride.
You better just
You are in for
seatbelt
a
on because it's about
ride.
to get wild.
Yeah, enjoy it. And let me know. I'll see you tomorrow. Probably. Let me know. So. All right. Well, let's go ahead and hop on to the next show then, and let's talk about the She-Hulk.
She-Hulk, She-Hulk.
I stand by what I said last week. This is a good show. The acting's great. The story's good. I really enjoy what I'm seeing. CGI is still crap, but I can get past that and enjoy the show. So I'm not going to say it's a horrible show based on that because I've seen bad CGI before in good movies. So still stand by that. I still have a hard time with CGI, and I think the problem with me is because I've seen Shrek too many times, maybe. So now I see Shrek whenever I look at this and Fiona.
I've heard Tatiana will call herself Shrek too. Like she's sort of embraced.
But I
she's
think
like,
she
"Oh,
looks,
whatever."
even despite the CGI, I think she still looks fantastic as She-Hulk. I love that. I love that look. I don't know why. It's just,
Right.
I think what threw me off was like the first episode when she had her hair pulled back. Kind of that was kind of like Navi-ish to me, but still.
Well, Lisa, we haven't heard any thoughts from you on it. We did see episode 1 last week. We'll do 1 and 2 right now. What are your thoughts so far on the show? How are you liking it?
I'm really liking it. The background is I don't know a ton about the character. My good friend Sam at one point during the Panini had sent me a big box of comics because I was sitting around just like bored. I think it was like right after I'd lost a job. And she sent me a bunch of comics, and one of them was She-Hulk. And I can't remember the title, and so I was kind of jumping in the middle of it, but I liked what I read, so I thought it was interesting enough. And I like Tatiana Maslany. I think she's a really funny person. I've listened to her a lot on a comedy podcast I listen to a lot. And yeah, so I kind of went in like, I think I'm going to like this. And I've seen 2 episodes, the 2 that are out, and I've really enjoyed them. As far as the CG goes, I mean, I'll be honest, to me, Hulk has always looked like a cartoon. And on some level, some of the Marvel characters just look like that to me anyway.
Right.
Like I know that there has been better CG, definitely. But I also think you have to take into account that certain projects do get a much higher budget and they're naturally going to have better CG. And I almost feel like She-Hulk has to like earn that slot. And if the show does well enough, then there would be better CG second season. So I kind of overlook that.
That's a fair point. And that's kind of the point where I'm at with it too. You know, I compared it last week to I always defend Green Lantern. And my
I
argument is
saw your
always,
tweet.
yeah, my argument is always if you can make a suit, a material of pure energy, then show it to me, And it's the same way with this. Like if you can actually show me a Hulk, then you can give me something better than what I've got. I can't get Hulk on screen otherwise. It's not so egregious that I don't like the show. It's just it stands out to me. Like it's something but once again, I came to the conclusion last week. I just don't like Professor Hulk. I want Hulk to be a brooding, not talking guy. I don't like the look. It reminds me too much of Shrek. But the show is still fantastic. Beyond that, there are a few issues with it. Or not a few issues, just a couple things I want to bring up this week with it. But we'll talk about that as we go into it. Sarah, what do you think? Are you still loving the show? I know you loved it last week.
I think it's fun. I think it's great. I mean, I love the freshness of it. It's like you got Jennifer in there, and it's especially where it's she's dealing with a lot of things that as a female I've had to deal with. It's kind of like a man's world, that kind of thing. Not to get into sexist type thing, but I feel it. I didn't think I would, but I do. Mm-hmm. But still funny as hell. I mean, it's like it's just a fun show. It really is. I mean, it's not dark or whatnot, or it's just I love the humor. I really love the humor.
Okay.
I like the the way she's where she can transition. It's like you're like here, and it's like, whoop. Okay, bring it back down. Whoop. And as much as I don't like Smart Hulk, I mean, I understand why he's in this, because he's trying to bridge the gap between the two personalities he has, and it just throws him off that she doesn't have that. But for the most part, I mean, I'm just kind of like, this is a fun watch. I mean, even my kids, they watched the first 2 episodes, and they've liked it. So I don't think it's too dark or or too. I don't say dark, but like too deep. And it's it's not really something that's, I don't know. It's just fun. I mean, really, that's kind of the way I look at it, because it's almost like she's taking a serious stand on being a Hulk, but yet it's like, I can kind of play with this a little bit. I can have a little fun, because I can only take it but so seriously, because it's something I have to deal with. So I'm not going to go on one extreme to where I'm like, oh my God, I have to be like this, or the other extreme where I have to fight it and like totally not do anything, which is like, hey man, it is what it is. This is what I got to live with. It is, whatever. Yeah. But, and even with the CGI, I can still see issues with it. And, to Lisa's point, maybe they just didn't have enough in the budget, but it's not enough to really turn me off.
Right. I agree. Ross, thoughts?
Oh, 10 is still in my thunder. I was gonna bring out that little Wolverine comment, but
I was gonna ask about that. Yeah,
I'm not positive that it definitely was who they were going for, but being a bar fight, definitely contribute away. There's so many little things I like about it. So my mom watched this show and she was laughing the whole entire time, and I thought that was just great in itself. When you have someone who's never seen any of the other stuff, it's amazing just to be able to roll right into it and just and see the humor and see, with, like you said, it's on the surface. It works very well and people can just get into it. Mm-hmm. But I was telling Greg this last night, what kind of spurred a thought in my head when I was trying to explain something to her about it was that when you have Smart Hulk and that blood got into her system, does that really make it why she's the Hulk that she is? Does it change her ability, the type of Hulk that she is? She's not all full rage monster. Would it have been the opposite, the other way around? If she got, if Rage Hulk blood got into your system, would you turn into that kind of a Hulk? And so,
but didn't he kind of make a point to say that her DNA was a little bit different?
Their DNA being their family DNA.
Oh, that's right. They can handle the radiation stuff.
To handle the gamma radiation.
Yeah, there was something different about hers versus
And that's why I think that it's very weird for him when they were discussing that back and forth, because not only has he screwed around with his own DNA so much trying to figure out how to balance the two. And then, Smart Hulk was born, but now he has a totally different run on that with the blood that she has, her being the first time she's getting the Hulk blood introduced. And I mean, like, it's just, it took me down like a little spot to where I was trying to figure out, like, why does this make sense? Like, why is she able to do these things? Like, and so trying to explain it, I'm like, oh shit, that might be why. I don't know.
It's a good explanation.
That's a
I
good
can buy it.
theory.
Well, let's break it down. Let's get into this episode. Lisa, start us off. Like, well, actually, 1 and 2. It doesn't matter. The whole show. Like, what about? Let's say this week. Did you see that you were want to talk about? Really enjoyed.
I liked the concept of this episode, this newest episode, where she's grappling with like a moral question about whether or not she should take this job. A lot of conflict about how she's perceived, which I think touches on what Sarah talked about earlier. There are some, sort of feminist concepts that are explored, but they're surface level enough to where you don't feel like the show is kind of beating you over the head with it. It's just sort of embracing it. And I think that makes a lot of sense. She talks about being able to move from one world to the other. She sort of code switches between being herself, being She-Hulk, and it's a cool metaphor. I thought the last week had really cool trauma sort of metaphors with how she dealt with trauma, how he, how Hulk dealt with trauma and him trying to help her, like, this is going to change your life. You're going to be different from here on out. There's no going back, and how much denial she was in. I thought that was kind of a cool exploration. I don't know. But anyway, in this week, I liked her ultimate decision with Tim Roth's character to go ahead and represent him. And then, of course, everything blows up right at the end, like the second she takes the case. But I also kind of like the conversation she had with Bruce where she was like, are you really okay with me fighting this guy that almost killed you? And he's like, man, that feels like that happened so long ago. And I thought that was funny, but also it's kind of cool because Bruce as a character, like, he's really evolved a lot, with his anger and like how he processes that and how he's able to sort of like move on. I don't know, just all of that. I liked all that kind of little stuff works for me.
Lisa, I love your insight so much because you hit on the exact 2 points that I want. Like, if I didn't talk about anything else about the show tonight, these 2 points right here. And the first one you're talking about touching on the female aspect of, the things you may have to go through and that type of stuff. And I know when I first heard about the show, I heard that it was going to beat you over the head with that. And I didn't feel that in the first episode. I saw recognition, but not beating me over the head. Then I watched this episode, and literally within the first 3 minutes, there's 2 references. And I was like, oh no, they're going to beat me over the head with this. But then they didn't. And it was done. And I didn't see another one after that. And I was like, okay, cool. So you're not like, I'm cool. I'm totally cool with that. Recognize it because it does exist. This kind of stuff does exist and it happens, and recognize it. But you're not making it out to be everybody does it. And I liked that about that. I thought at the beginning of the show they were going to beat me over the head with that, but they didn't. And I was like, okay, cool. I can run with this because, like I said, I like the recognition of it. I like it. It needs to be addressed, but I didn't want the whole show to be about that. And it's not. It does a good job handling that. The second thing was the moral issue you had there, because I did have a problem with this. And this is my biggest problem with this episode. Okay.
I can imagine. I mean, it's controversial, I think.
Oh yeah. But she makes a call to Bruce, and she talks to him about how the right thing to do is this, and I should do this right thing. But I'm going to ignore this right thing if my cousin doesn't want me to, which is exactly what you're fighting against, is people doing stuff to help people they love out or people within their circle out. And I was like, they shouldn't have put that in there. They should have made her just say, I'm sorry if you feel bad about this, but I'm doing this because I feel like it's the right thing to do. It was my only quarrel with the episode, because I felt like when she said, but I won't do it if you don't want me to, that's kind of giving in right there. That's kind of saying everything I just said means nothing because I'll give it up for you, just in my opinion. And that was the only thing I had with this issue. And it's just funny you brought up those 2 exact points, but I did recognize both of those things, So what say you?
I mean, she's a lawyer. I say that with love. My mother's a lawyer. They have to deal with some tough situations. And I think as moral and as right as we all want to be, we would put our family first.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I empathize with her saying that to Bruce
Right.
because it's a really tough situation. But and I like too that she was in a situation at first where she really didn't want to represent him, but she was like, I need a job. I felt like that's very human and kind of skated over a lot in something like this, where it's like, I have moral high ground and I won't do anything ever even close to unethical because I'm such a good person. But it's like people got bills to pay. Like
Right.
so I kind of like all that kind of worked for me. But I see what you're saying though, and I could totally watch someone walk away and be like frustrated with that aspect of it. So I get it.
Right. And it didn't frustrate me to a point where, like I said, I didn't like the movie. It was just, or the show. It was just something I saw and I was like, well, that's a little weird. But you're right. There's stuff like that in every little thing we watch. You know, it's hard to nitpick these little things. So, Sarah Ross, I turn it over to you. What do y'all think? Episode
I
2.
think the
Still
thing that kind of like stood out to me is just the fact that, even though she kind of showed her Hulk self in the courtroom prior, and then it was like, oh, well, based on this, we don't want to hire you. And I'm thinking through this whole process, I'm like, is anybody thinking discrimination? I mean, that's just me. I mean, I know how it's been. It's like, you feel like you're qualified for a job. It's like, oh, I can't. And over. So there's like a lot of like underlying things. Like I said, it's not that, not really, they're not beating you over the head with feminism. They're not man bashing or anything like that. But I mean, it's just kind of like, situations where it's not as, like with Avengers, it's like you just automatically accept, oh, you're heroes. You're superheroes. And for her, she's like, okay, yeah, I hulked out, but that doesn't mean I can't do my job.
Right.
I mean, don't hold that against me.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I feel like, yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. I mean, it was just kind of like, that was just the one that kind of stood out. But then, like you said, like the conversation she had with Bruce, it's like, oh, I want to do this, but if you don't, but like I said, it's kind of a gray area.
Exactly.
So, I mean, granted, I'm not a lawyer. I don't have to make decisions like that because I'm sure you have to kind of pick and choose your moral stance, shall we say. So, I mean, and plus, I mean, it just seems like family is kind of like a big theme throughout these first 2 episodes thus far. Because you got the relationship between her and Bruce, and then you meet her family, and it's like, yeah, it's just kind of, that was just my take off of it. But
and
Well, you
Tim
guys
Kizzy
keep
says in
it-
the chat, push comes to shove,
Yeah.
family first, always convert. And I agree, but that's I'm just, like I said, I'm trying to establish that this is what everybody says they want, and this is when it really comes down to it.
Mhm.
What can you do type thing. So
It's almost like
gotta
expectations. Like you expect to be this, but then it's like, I've got to make my personal choices what's good for me.
Mhm.
Your argument was sound. I mean, you can talk about morals all day long, but until that reaches close to home in a moment where it's survival changes it. And so, although that you can't really say that her, you guys, I was going to say, you keep calling it a conversation. She wasn't having a conversation with Banner. She was just talking at him.
Yeah.
True.
But what you really have is, I mean, she's ultimately looking for survival, and probably like a little bit of questioning too, as she's working through it in her head as she's talking.
Mhm.
Is it something that she should be doing? Because let's face it, she's the first like superhero like with a job.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's like almost
That's
like a
not
normal
a
life.
superhero.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a world now in the Marvel universe where things just are more complicated. I think like in the first Avengers movie, it was like they're just accepted as heroes, but now we've got like Falcon, Winter Soldier, we've had, Endgame, so many things have happened since then where I think the general public in that universe views superheroes differently. So I think that's why they view She-Hulk so differently than they would have maybe when they first met superheroes.
Right.
Well, case in point, as soon as she had her first transition, Bruce, Smart Hulk, whatever the hell, he's like, you're a superhero now. She's like, hold on a second. Can I at least acclimate to this for just a minute? It was kind of like, just because I have this does not mean that I'm going to be what you think I'm going to be. This is my expectation. I'm kind of going to choose my own destiny on this one.
Cody hopped on. Cody, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, buddy? How you doing? Happy to
I'm
be
doing
back
good, man.
on the-
I can't believe you're on when the game's not even over yet, but I mean, it kind of is over.
Hey, no, don't rush because of me. If you guys are in the middle of talking about something else, I'll happily be along for the ride. This is my first time on the rebranded version.
Yeah, you haven't been on Geeks yet, or Geeks Chasing Squirrels yet. You've been on SAS plenty though, but I'm sure you'll probably hear a lot more, right? Especially with
dude,
some hot D to talk about.
Actually, now, dude, you might have to beat me away with a stick just to get rid of me, dude. Like this is my jam. What we're about to talk about. But yeah,
Well,
It's like, how much did you like it over Arcane? That's my question.
Ooh.
Oh, Arcane is probably my favorite new thing, but World of Ice and Fire is probably my favorite fantasy world ever of all time. So both really good though. But yeah, happy to be here.
Well, we're currently talking about She-Hulk. Are you watching She-Hulk?
I have finished episode 1.
Okay.
I have not finished 2, but feel free to continue any and every conversation. I'm sure I'll catch up.
Well, I think we're just about to
Don't
wrap it
worry.
up here in a minute anyway.
Yeah, but don't worry about spoiling me. You're fine.
Okay, cool. Well, I did. Okay, then I'll go on. I did want to ask. There's one underlying message here I wanted to talk about. You know, this show seems to be a lot about kind of laying some underlying stuff with feminism, with women empowering and work, and it's. I like having the stuff in there. I'm wondering with this last thing we have at the end with Abomination, is this an underlying thing of reform for criminals and an underlying message that some just cannot be reformed? Or do we not know the whole story yet? Because it seems like this is kind of the theme the show runs with, is kind of underlying messages between what's going on in the comedic moments and the action moments. No? So, which is fine. It's a good story. But do y'all see that? Like, as the whole thing with Abomination was, I legitimately believed what I saw. And then you see at the end what happens. And you're like, well, I need to see what's going on first. I need to see the rest of the story before I make a decision. But like, is that kind of what they're touching on here, is reform of criminals and whether it's possible or not?
I think it's really an angle. It's an angle to introduce him. It's an angle to bring in, like what's going to cause her to, I don't want to say question her moral lawyer point of view, because I mean, we're going to get Daredevil in here. So like, is he going to come in as a lawyer to really help back her, like mentally? Like, here's what you need to be thinking about.
He's going to be suited up, buddy.
Oh, I know he's going to be that too. But I mean, like, how do they do it to start off with? Like, which side of him are you going to get first? It doesn't matter. I mean, like, they can do it either way. But when you start having I guess it's clearly he's trying to do something to be better by himself. And like, this whole thing that happened at the end was definitely more of like a clickbaity, like, the news found footage. Someone brought some of the footage to the news and they made their own headline about it. We know we saw it, like it was in a movie. So is it really more about reform, or is it just him trying to get out? Is it him trying to play the angle to get out, to go do something that he has a hidden agenda for, which, I mean, clearly is most likely going to be the answer. But what does it, him being out, like him going to that fight, what does that have to do? How are they going to play that in there? Because I'm curious. I was curious at the time, like, how do you put Abomination in there? Why do you put Abomination in there? Why is it so important to have him in Shang-Chi and as a cameo, So now I hope that they actually do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, crazy. I think it's to bring in Wong, because we know Wong's going to be in the show too.
Right. And Wong is the glue of everything. I think Wong, being the Sorcerer Supreme, he's been making up for the lack of Sorcerer Supreme and anything else that we've got in Marvel, like way before, Doctor Strange actually first came out. And so I think that I really like seeing Wong in everything. And I really like the fact that that's his real name anyway.
Yeah.
Why does that sound funny when you say that?
That was kind of funny. I'm going to cut that out.
Do it. Do it.
All right. Well, is there anything else we want to bring up about She-Hulk? It kind of surprises me. These episodes are only like 35 minutes long. And if you cut credits out, or 38 minutes long, you cut credits out, and it's like really like 28 minutes. It's like watching a television show, like a 30-minute show on television. Yeah. But that doesn't mean that I want them to make them longer and fill it with crap content. You
Very
know,
true.
like
I think it
I
just
would
hits
rather
it
have the
just
shorter
right.
shows with better content than have filler. I don't want them to
100.
CW it. So
Don't CW
The
it.
ship. The ship
Yeah,
was
the
the thing that
ship.
we didn't talk
Yes.
about.
let's do it.
So Banner's going on an expedition. We don't know where, but you get just enough for him to. It's got to be a weird like C plot to this whole thing, right? And like, is it going to play into whatever it's going to build him into next? But I mean, the fact that you bring Sakaar back in just name alone was pretty cool. And now that he's apparently going somewhere, we're going to see what that's about.
Well, I think this is a good way to segue into Secret Wars, Secret Invasion, and it's a great way to, if you ever wanted to build a Planet Hulk story, you could do that.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's kind of the direction they're going with that. But we'll see what happens. He was actually in. I didn't think we are going to see Banner or Mark Ruffalo's character at all anymore in this series. Maybe just for a minute, and I saw him a little more in 2 than I thought I was going to. Maybe he is going to be a bigger part of this because. I mean, it's not much for him to say a few lines.
Yeah.
That's really all he's got to do, right? Is say a few lines and everything else is CGI. So
he's CGI. I mean, it's all him.
Well, yeah, but they already have his likeness with that character. I'm sure they probably don't need him to actually play that role if they wanted to put a 2-minute spot with him sitting down on the phone. But I'm sure they could.
If it were me, I'd come in and do it every single time.
I would too.
Put the dots on my face. I'm cool. Let's go.
Yeah. So. Well, all right. Well, is there anything else about She-Hulk you want to bring up? I'm enjoying the show so far. Like I said, I have a few quarrels with it, but there's nothing that I don't have a few quarrels with because nothing's perfect. So, but for what I'm getting, I'm enjoying the show so far. Yeah. I think Tin Tizzy said, or J Stubb said earlier, it's his least favorite show, but it's solid, which is so great to say about Marvel. Like even Marvel's worst stuff is still pretty good. It's like a good burger. Yeah,
I mean, you don't connect with all of it, but even if you don't connect with it, you're still like, this is still good.
Right. Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up She-Hulk. And you know what? We have a bunch of people from C3 Panthers podcast in here, and I want to thank y'all. Cody's here, the host of C3 Panther podcast. Thank you, buddy. I know a lot of people want to talk about some Hot D tonight with us, so it was going to be the last thing I had on there, but we've got a lot of people in the chat room right now, and I know that a lot of them are here for this show. So do y'all want to go ahead and talk about some
Yes, but I will duck out so that I am not spoiled.
I hear you. Okay. Well, definitely check it out because I'm not even a Game of Thrones fan, and I really enjoyed this. So, but Lisa, tell us where they can find you at.
Oh, yes. You can find me at ILTM Podcast on Twitter. I'm also at I Love That Movie Podcast on Instagram, and pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, just search for I Love That Movie and enjoy all the Hot D, guys. Gotta go.
I appreciate
Bye,
it.
Lisa.
And check us out. We're probably going to do a mashup show with Lisa pretty soon on Willow, I think, was what we talked about.
let's
So
do
we're
it.
going to try to make that happen, but we'll see what
Okay.
happens. Lisa, thank you so much. You're welcome every week. Hit me up. All right.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.
Bye, lady.
Bye, Lisa.
Bye.
Cody, what's up, man? I know you've been dying to talk about some Hot D. So let's
Yeah,
do it,
don't you
man.
love that acronym too?
I do.
Hot D?
I do.
Hey man, are you ready for the Hot D?
I do.
Yeah,
Every
I know.
Sunday
I
night, baby.
sure am. Yeah,
So,
man.
Cody, you're a huge Thrones fan, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
just like when I came on here and I told you guys how much the Watchmen was like important in my life, like this represents like the past decade of my life that I've been into this world. This is Song of Ice and Fire world. I've read all the books. I love all the characters. This show is something that I've been waiting for a long time. And there's truly something in this show for everyone. Because even if you've read the book that this show is based off of, Fire and Blood, it's a fictional historical account of the Targaryen kings. So it's written from the point of view of the Maesters who had to do most of the cutting, let's just say, in this episode. There's a whole thing with the Maesters. But so even if you've read the book, there's still so many different things that the book readers are basically going to this show to find out because the books were written that way. So if you've never watched Game of Thrones before and you're looking for like an entryway to get into it, this is quite literally perfect.
Oh yeah. I've decided after season 1 I'm gonna get all through season 1, and then I'm gonna go back and watch it like a kid watching, like a young kid watching Star Wars, episode 1 through 6. You know, well, 1 through 9 now. I'm gonna start with the prequel, and then I'm gonna actually go in and watch Game of Thrones, because I had the same thing with Witcher, and a lot of other things people recommended it to me. And as soon as I watched it, I was like, wow, I really wish I would have started this before. And just watching this first episode of House of the Dragon, I was like, yeah, I should have been watching Game of Thrones. I definitely.
Just so you know, the first 5 seasons are based on books.
Then
so
after that,
they're
it's
really,
written.
really, really good. And that's why that show was the biggest show and phenomenon in the world.
Right.
Well, then the showrunners didn't have the final books to rely on. So the final 3 seasons were some of the most critically panned seasons of television ever. So also, this show is kind of regaining the trust of Game of Thrones fans that were kind of spurred by how terrible that ending was. And without going into it too long of an explanation of it, the original showrunners that caused the demise of that original show are no longer a part of anything to do with this. And George R. R. Martin, the original creator, is much more heavily connected to this show than he was to Game of Thrones.
So it should be a little more show accurate, at least fan pleasing. So
sure, absolutely. And I mean, listen, I'm obviously the super fan, but I'm just as interested to hear everything that you guys thought about the show. Like the first episode, I felt was a really good introductory point to this world of Westeros. Truly, you know.
Well, let's move. Let's ask then, Sarah. What are you? You're a huge Game of Thrones fan, no? No,
that's
I
like
wasn't
totally
sure.
out of my realm, dude. It's like I'm trying to keep up like everything else.
Okay. So, but you still haven't watched the first one yet, right? But you wanted to hear about it.
I want to hear about it because, like I said, it's one of those things where I can hear you can talk about it all you want, because some of the Game of Thrones like episodes, like throughout the seasons, I have an idea of what's happened, but like I said, I haven't watched everything to really put everything together.
It's
So,
like
and I've heard other people talk about it, so I feel like it's one of those things where I don't think it would spoil it when I finally watch it, because it's like you can tell me all you want to, but by the time I get there, it's like I'm gonna have my own reaction to it. So I'm just kind of curious to see what everybody thinks about it. It's kind of the way it was with Umbrella Academy, because I listened to you and Nathan talk about it for so long, and then I'm like, okay, finally, damn it, The Boys, the same thing. I'm like, oh my god, I've got to watch it. So.
We'll wear you down. We'll wear you down, for sure. And
that's
if you haven't watched
taking
Umbrella
this out. It's
Academy,
like, just wear me down.
well, if you haven't watched Umbrella Academy, I don't know what's wrong with you. It's amazing. One of the best shows I've ever seen. Absolutely amazing. Well, Ross, you're a huge Game of Thrones fan, though, right?
I'm not a book reader, but I was definitely big on all the shows. I remember when it started and watching like the whole entire first season, and I just remember all the things that happened. I don't want to spoil it, but at the season finale of the first season, you're just like, what are they doing? This show has to keep going. Like, how are they? Why is this okay? And so it really hooks you, because I mean, like, the things that they do in that show are the first episode. I don't have words for it. Like, it's crazy. You watched the first episode.
I watched
Greg.
the first episode, yes.
And so
where it ends with a brother and sister fucking. Yes.
Yeah. And so I mean, like, the show itself,
and pushing a boy out a window. Hey, you know, that's found them doing.
The whole show desensitizes you so much, and that's a real big point I'm going to bring up in this new show. But you're just desensitized to the battle. You're in it. Like when you watch this show, like you're in the universe, and I think that's really said a lot about the whole entire show. Cody was absolutely right. The first 5 seasons were ridiculous. 6 felt like they screwed up a timetable, and like you were just trying to figure out what was going on, and a lot of things happened. But I finished it, and I mean, like, it has one of the most criticized series finales of any show. And here's the tough thing, is that when any show ends, if it doesn't end how your brain likes it to end, then I mean, like, no one's really going to be happy. So every series finale is really tough.
Yeah.
How do you land the plane at that point? They did exactly what everyone kind of figured they were going to do. They just didn't want them to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Felt like it
the
was
show
played
itself,
out. Yeah.
yeah, I've rewatched this show so many times. Like this show probably started my weird obsession for going back and watching previous seasons before the new one comes out. And I did it countless times because I come across someone like you guys who've never seen it before. I'm like, oh no, we're going to sit down and do all of this right now. Like, your next week is all Game of Thrones.
Yes. And
Yeah.
that's probably where I'll be pretty soon. Like I said, all I got to do is get Ashley into it. She liked the first episode, but she kind of half paid attention to it. If I can get her to really watch the whole thing, I'll end up watching Game of Thrones within the next 2 weeks, the whole series.
Yeah.
So it'll be the only thing on my TV for the next 2 weeks. So
Well, yeah,
So again, I'm one
it's
of
not a
those
kid show.
I'm one of those super book watcher nerds. So it's like, George R.R. Martin is a notoriously slow writer. I mean, if you've been a part of his book fandom for a long time, you're used to waiting on George to put out new books. And they just flat out ran out of material to work with. That's a whole nother issue. But, Jay Stubbs is in the chat room, and him and I have been talking like this House of the Dragon is a much truer it's truer to George R.R. Martin's original vision than this, than Game of Thrones even was to the A Song of Ice and Fire books, I would say. And people have made a lot of like the streaming battles between Lord of the Rings. They have their new show coming out soon that they spent $1 billion making.
good.
And I think one of the advantages, if you're pitting them against one another, that Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon has over the Rings of Power is that the original creator is still alive and still very much contributing to the overall health of this show.
True.
Yeah. So do you guys break it down from start to finish, or how? Because there's a few different parts of the show I want to get you guys.
No, the best thing to do is just take whatever parts of the show you want to. We'll mention it. We'll dive into it, and then we just chase whatever squirrels we have to after that. And then when we're done talking about it, we're done talking about it. There's no limits, no rules. It's just kind of have fun talking about it. So to start it out,
Yeah.
I'm not a Game of Thrones fan, but this is what 170 years before.
Yeah. So this is almost 200 years.
Okay, almost 200 years beforehand. So nothing in here will ruin Game of Thrones for me. I'll know
No, not at
houses
all.
and stuff, but it won't ruin a story for me.
So basically, if you know anything about Game of Thrones, slight spoilers, Daenerys Targaryen is trying to win back the Iron Throne that was taken from her family. Well, the Targaryens ruled over Westeros for 300 years. I mean, they're truly a very long time. And this show represents the Targaryens at the height of their power. So Westeros was completely unified under the Targaryens. And in this medieval world, they have the equivalent of nuclear weapons, which are dragons, and they're linked to the dragons. And one of the things that's really going to differentiate this show from the original show is you're going to come to know and love these dragons like they are characters themselves. Like, just like they are the people. They're gonna make you laugh and cry. Like the dragons are a central feature to this show, and the connection that they have with their writer. And that's going to be very important as we get on to these next episodes, because if you're talking about war and dragons are involved, well, the stakes are very, very high at that point in time. So war is something that everyone's desperately tiptoeing around in that kind of scenario.
Well, from what I can understand from watching the first episode, and based on what you're saying with the dragons, it seems like the Targaryens.
Yep.
It seems like there's 7 kingdoms. They are the ones who control dragons, and because of that, they're in charge, kind of deal.
Yes. So Aegon the Conqueror. By the way, there's some great YouTube channels that do like fantastic, like, and they give you the entire background of Aegon the Conqueror and all of that. But basically, Aegon and his 3 dragons Balerion, Vagar, and Meraxes, they conquered all of Westeros. And that was 100 years before the start of House of the Dragon. Now, what's interesting is one of the original 3 dragons that helped conquer Westeros is still alive in the current story. And you're going to see that dragon. And by the way, dragons never
Khaleesi?
stop growing. So if a dragon starts out at a certain size, as they get on to be 100, 150 years old, they keep on growing more and more massive in size. So by the time you see that dragon named Vagar in this show, it's going to be on par with the biggest dragon that has ever lived in Westeros. Which is a lot considering what's going to happen. But a question I had for y'all, because again, I could talk forever about this.
No, you're
You
good.
guys are, more new to this. What did you make of the childbirthing?
That was one thing I definitely want to talk about, the childbirthing situation.
Let me have it. I want to hear it.
Don't go negative at first. Hold on. Let me start off before you go. Before we get too crazy, I think that they do a fantastic job describing the women's roles in raising, creating and raising new kings, or not even that, but the royal family, because the show opens with the monologue of talking about how the king knew that the only thing that could bring down the Targaryen family was itself from within.
Yeah.
And they literally right off the bat, which is what we all knew this show was going to be about, was internal struggle. It's all going to be about how the Targaryens are going to get along. Well, when you see that the mom, or when it jumps forward, and when you see that the mom is having that conversation, she's bringing up all those key points of like, this is where we go to war. This is what we do. And this is how we contribute. Yeah. This is how we make the family better. And this is like, they played it up. And I thought that even though we live in a different time, what they chose to show and represent that was really cool right off the bat. Now, the fact that you see the harm in that woman's eyes of all the things that she's done and lost, and the kids that she's had, and I mean, like the hurt is real. And that conversation was really deep when she was talking with her husband and basically saying, like, this is it. Like, I can't do this anymore. And saying all that stuff, and then to turn around and have such a scene that came to fruition after that was, I mean, Stubbs says it right there. It's brutal.
Yeah.
It's completely brutal. And what I was trying to talk about earlier about the show desensitizing you to certain things, you watched a guy take an axe to the face.
Yeah.
You watched another guy, completely lose and spew because like the stuff that he was seeing happen. And we see these things in Game of Thrones and like, it's not that big of a deal, but man, when you get to that scene where she is about to give birth, I mean, like it's completely different.
Yeah.
And the fact that she had no agency. The king decided, well, if I'm going to potentially lose both, I'm going to do this for the realm, because he's already has it in his head that they're going to have a son. And that was the whole hubris of the tournament. It's like, we're going to have this tournament to honor my son. And she even mentions it like, you have all of this, all these lords are coming for a son that you don't even have yet. And I really like the juxtaposition that you bring up there, Ross. Like, yeah, he said, Emma Aaron says, our battlefield is the birthing bed. And that's where they waged their war. But at the time when they're showing that scene where they're delivering the baby and essentially killing her, Daemon Targaryen is fighting Criston Cole in an actual battlefield during the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of this show, just by its nature, is going to be the male-female dynamic. And even though it takes place in a medieval world where they viewed women as, lesser and inferior to a man, the women are really going to steal the show in this show. Rhaenyra Targaryen and Alicent Hightower, for as cool as all the other characters are, and trust me, there's some incredibly cool characters in this show, but Rhaenyra Targaryen and Alicent Hightower, I imagine as it continues to go forward, are going to become the two most captivating characters by far in this show. Because really, it's between their two families. I won't spoil like what's to come. They already maybe if you piece together things in the episode, you might kind of know what's to come. But these two women and how they have to overcome this medieval hierarchical world that they live in is like a real part of the story, and the right to inheritance. That's really a key dynamic at the heart of this entire show.
Yeah, the fact that I think if any family, the Targaryen family has always had like the most equality when it comes to like how they view women, and even though like they do show that, you know, like you're right, like it's a man's world. There's a king, and like rarely ever is there a queen, and then you see what transpires with the father-daughter conversation. I mean, there's one family that can do it, like it's them, and it has always seemed like that, and that's why I think that Daenerys' struggle at Game of Thrones was such a big thing, because she was basically saying like, to hell with all the rest of you, like, you know, she pulled a Thanos. If you need it done, you know, you got to do it yourself. And what do you have? Like, who else do you have to fall back on? No one. So what she did, she built a following, and like here in this show, you have that already kind of established. Now we just have to see how well that's going to play out, and we know that that's going to be part of the struggle. But two other things I was going to bring up real fast. When it was the Maester told the king that you can either save the kid or you can lose them both. He didn't say anything about saving them all.
Saving her. Yeah.
It wasn't posed as a question. It wasn't posed, period. And I thought that right there meant that, you know, like you said, man's world type thing. That's how he came out and decided to phrase it.
Well, and to that point right there, you know, just based on this whole scene, because I think this is probably the crux of this episode, you know, like it was the biggest scene in this episode. Like, I wonder what he's thinking at that moment. Like, how do you make this decision? Like you said, Ross, when you're brought with those results, like you can choose this or this, and you realize that saving her is not one of them. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you make? I don't know what I'd do. Like, I have no idea how you could make that decision.
Well,
I don't know how you could, you know, move forward from that point. But I don't know. When I judge a show, I usually judge it by after a few episodes. If there's an emotional point that's supposed to catch me, that's supposed to make me kind of, you know, catch in my throat or give me goosebumps or really feel something, and I don't feel that, and I can recognize that I should, okay, I'm not going to like the show. That moment right there had me on pins and needles, because I know what's going to happen. I know, and I know I'm going to have to see it.
Yeah.
But it's like, man, it's like, what the hell do you do? You know, like it's the definition of a predicament. There is no good answer. Yeah.
The fact that they had that conversation about her being done birthing kids was in his head too, like all of that. And not only that, the dream that he had that he described to her completely came true, just in the most screwed up way possible. You know, him hearing shields, him, all the things he described to her, why he thought it was going to be a boy and why he thought everything was going to be successful because of this vision that he had. All of that came true.
Yeah, it was right. And look, Tin says, I don't know how people feel about this, but wifey comes first in my world. I can have more kids, but I can't have another partner like that. And I feel that. But remember, he wasn't given that option. It was lose both of them or save the baby. There was no there was no save the mother.
And when you are in an emotionally heightened state of mind that, you know, you have to be in at that point in time, because everything is life or death. I mean, that, you know, you're not thinking rationally.
Right.
And you can even see afterwards, the resentment that Rhaenyra holds after the mom dies, because they really did a good job very early of establishing that connection between Rhaenyra and her mother. That she, was worried about her mom being pregnant, but then she gave off those Arya Stark vibes, and that she didn't want to be a wife wearing a dress. She wanted to be a knight, and that speaks a lot to the character of Rhaenyra. But it's truly unprecedented for a woman to be the next in the line of succession, and that's what the opening scene of the show is. When you see that old dude with the white hair, he is essentially choosing who the next ruler is going to be, his granddaughter. So that king had 2 sons, and they both died. His oldest son had a daughter who you see in the show. That's the queen who never was. She was married to the black gentleman, Corlys Velaryon.
Okay.
She's the one that basically said all these knights are young, dumb, and full of seed. That's that woman. She's a dragon rider. But a precedent was established that day because they chose Viserys over her. So all of Westeros looks at that like, okay, well, that's a precedent. Like it's a Supreme Court ruling or something.
Mm-hmm.
Now that means
the council chose, right?
Yeah, the council chose. And so I'll throw this out there. There's something, and none of this has been confirmed or not, but keep your eye on the Maesters, because there is, and you guys are kind of already onto it, there's a lot of chatter that there's a conspiracy that the Maesters are in on something. Because essentially they write the letters, they're the ones that heal them. Like you saw early in the show when Viserys had that hole in his back, and the Maesters are trying to doctor him up. Like everyone depends on the Maesters in this world. And when you have that much power, you can tend to wield that power and influence. So it'll be an interesting plot line to follow going forward with that.
Right.
And I love what Raven Miss says in that comment you highlighted too. I hope my father was happy for the few moments that his trueborn son was alive. Like, was it worth it?
Yeah, for that one day. Remember, and that was another point in the show was the you see that turn, or not the turn, but the entire time that he's there, his brother's the prince, correct? Yeah. Who is not who technically is the next in line. He is the heir,
right?
If he has no son. But the king can name a different heir if he decides to do so. And I feel like had it not been for one comment, that he probably would have been the heir to be the next king.
Yeah.
But he made the comment of heir for a day. Jokingly, drunk. Hey, I've messed up when I'm drunk plenty of times. It happens. But I feel like that was his downfall. And I feel like that's the moment right there where, okay, this is what broke the house. That one comment.
Yeah,
I feel like maybe what broke the house.
If you go back and watch that episode again, you never hear those words come out of Daemon's mouth.
That's true.
It instantly transitions from Otto Hightower, who very clearly has it in for Daemon, and Otto Hightower is telling the king, "Your brother was heard by 3 corroborated witnesses that he said." Cheers to the king for a day, and it's possible that even if Daemon did say that, maybe he was saying it in a more mournful type of way rather than a more boastful kind of way. Mm-hmm. But of course, the Hightowers, specifically Otto, who doesn't like Daemon at all, as you see later in that show, he's constantly pushing that friction between the 2 brothers, Viserys and Daemon.
So, okay. So J-Stub says in the chat, and it's kind of what you're touching on right now, is that you never actually heard him say it. And J-Stub says it's debated in the books whether he said it at all. He ever said it.
Right.
Here's my thing. If you didn't say it, why would you not deny it?
Right.
About it. That's my only thing. I feel like if it was that serious and you're about to basically be banished from your kingdom or lose your chance to be the king, and you didn't do that, you're at least going to say, no, I didn't do this.
Yeah.
But he didn't.
That's what leads me to believe that maybe he said it, but how he
didn't
was
mean
saying
it. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it didn't
Well,
come
which
off
still is not bad.
so
It's
right.
if you make a racist joke, it's still racist.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you
Even
know,
if you,
so
if you didn't mean it to be, it still is, right?
right. Yeah, I don't know.
Hey, you're
I mean,
muted, Ross. You're
Oh,
muted.
thanks. I think it really comes back to whether or not you need what you need your reason to be in order to do the thing that you want to do. And if he's
Right.
okay with this being his reason to essentially just, go to the mattresses over the whole entire thing, you see him already screwing with the king.
right.
You see him whatever he's doing, poisoning or whatever the whole thing on the throne itself was, which, like I said before, you're sitting on a throne of knives. I mean, at some point you're going to get cut, but now you see it's more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's a good point. Like maybe he was at a point where he's already decided what he's going to do, and he's just waiting for the right reason to push him over that edge. I mean, look,
He's
when
probably
you call
playing
people
chess,
and ask them for advice, 90% of the time, you've already made your decision. You just want verification of what you're deciding is the right thing.
Yeah.
You look for people you can fight in to say, yeah, it's a good idea. That's
We're
the only
done. We
reason you
talked
ask
about
advice
She-Hulk
most of the
already.
time.
We're done. We don't need
Huh?
to go back to that. So we talked about She-Hulk.
Yeah, there you go. But I mean, I don't know. The character, I don't know his name, the brother, the prince, he gives off an evil vibe right from the beginning.
Daemon.
Yeah, you're I feel like you're supposed to look at him as a bad guy right from the beginning. But maybe they're throwing that at you as you're supposed to see that, and we're kind of fooling you. Maybe he's not such a bad guy. I don't know. First episode.
The good guy, bad guy dynamic is something that George R. Martin loves to play with. Like he calls it the gray area. That the best characters live in that gray area because there really is no good guys and bad guys. There are just sometimes there are good people who do bad things, and sometimes there are bad people who do good things. And that's kind of what he plays with a lot
Right.
in this story. Daemon, but something to add some context here. Certain Targaryens are dragon riders, and you see later on that Daemon has a dragon, Caraxes, the bloodworm, that big red wormy-looking dragon. You see him briefly at the end before he flies off. Well, that's why it's such a big deal that him and Viserys are parting from one another, because King Viserys doesn't ride a dragon anymore. He used to ride the oldest, biggest dragon in the realm, but he only rode it one time, and then it died shortly thereafter. So if you're the Targaryens, your might and power is your dragons. And it used to be that the king of Westeros was a dragon rider. So now that Viserys has made this decision, he has kind of cut himself off in some sense to a form of the Targaryen power with him and his brother Caraxes. Now there are still other Targaryens who have dragons as well, but it represents a fracturing of the unit of the House Targaryen. And that's where this whole show starts to kind of coalesce from that moment going forward.
He describes it really well at the end, and like it's been described multiple times in both series, and it's the Targaryens have to personify godliness, and if that's part of that.
Yeah. And they even mentioned that in the show too, that Rhaenyra mentions Targaryens as being the closest thing to gods because of the dragons. And that is true. Like I'm saying, they have the nuclear weapon of Westeros. And something that J Stubbs was wanting me to mention earlier, and it was mentioned in the show, that these nights in this world, Westeros has been at peace for almost 100 years.
Right.
So they haven't known war. So it's all these guys they have all this money, but that's why they're killing people in the tournament. It's like they're out to fight and prove themselves because they really have no other means to earn honor in a warlike setting. They don't have that anymore right now because there's been so much peace for so long.
Right. So it's almost like war is necessary to thrive. That deal.
Well, it's the whole train like you fight fight like a train thing, and if you can't actually go and fight, then
Yeah.
you don't really know how to train.
Yeah,
Good point.
100%. Yeah, and that's why they're killing each other in the tournament. Like normally you have blunted weapons in a tournament, but the only part of the episode that I thought was a little bit over the top is during the tournament. You have dudes just outright taking axes to the face and like murdering people. I felt like that was the only part of the show that was a tad over the top, but everything else I felt was tremendous. And by the way, I wanted to mention something to y'all here. I do like most people do. I watch all the YouTube review shows and the people that create content about all these shows, right? That's almost a part of watching all these new shows now. But I wanted to mention something that I have heard no one bring up in all the videos I've watched. Did anyone notice that the dragon got sad when it had to burn the mother at the funeral pyre?
Yeah.
You can hear it if you go back and listen to it. You hear the dragon whimper and like start to cry that it has to burn her rider's mother.
I didn't notice that. Huh.
Yeah, and it's a real cool sense of connection between Cyrax and Rhaenyra, the dragon's rider. And I thought that was a nice touch, a cool moment of the connection between those two.
Well, it's cool because they give these dragons like dog-like characteristics as far as loyalty, and it so it makes you automatically love them.
Right.
Well, at least me, I love dogs. So.
Yeah.
Dang it. Oh, okay, so I wanted to ask about some of the actors who play in these roles.
Sure.
I don't know the actor's name who plays the princess, the one who became the heir at the end of episode 1.
So there are going to be 2 versions of her. There are going to be 2 actresses that will play her throughout the season.
One older,
the
I'm
young
assuming.
Rhaenyra, her name is Millie Alcock.
Okay. Thought she did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic job. I loved every scene she was in. I was like, okay, I buy this. She is a badass, don't fuck with me princess.
Yeah.
And I bought it 100%. So I love that. So I'm assuming then you said there's a second actress that plays her. This first season probably goes through a number of years and or has flash forwards.
Right.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So eventually there's going to be they're going to age up a lot of the characters because a lot of the main meat of the show happens by the time they reach adulthood.
Okay.
But I don't know exactly how they're going to do it because they still have. I don't know if they're going to get all of the young actors and actresses out of the way first and then let them do the age jump and then it'll stay that way, or if they're going to kind of jump back and forth between present day Rhaenyra and younger
Kind of like Witcher
Rhaenyra.
does. Yeah.
Yeah, like there might be a little of that. I'm not certain how they're gonna do that, but there is going to be a time jump at a certain point in time.
Okay. Do we know if season 1, like where it brings us to? I know, like you said, we're 200 years away from where we're at in Game of Thrones. Do we think by the end of this season that we'll be at that point, or do you think that we have a lot of story to tell? I mean, 200 years, we have a lot of story to tell, but what do you think they'll do with it?
No, I honestly feel like the first 2 seasons, this season and maybe even next season, might be build-up seasons.
Okay.
And then the final 3 or 4 is going to be the here we go, shit's about to get crazy.
Okay. So you can see this going on a few seasons, like 4
Oh,
seasons
yeah.
at least. Okay.
Absolutely.
If it's good content, then yes, I will take that. But if you can tell the whole story in 1 season and not give me fillers and a lot of crap I don't want to watch, then give me 1 season.
Yeah, George has so many different characters and so many different plot lines that deserve to be expanded upon. They're going to have plenty enough material to be able to fully flesh out, I would say, the next 2 seasons with stuff like this. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're only through episode 1, and it kind of sucks. It comes out on Sunday nights. I mean, it's cool because it's easy to plan for Sunday nights, but then we record on Fridays, so I'm 2 days away from the next episode coming out and 5 days removed from when it came out. Yeah. So it is kind of weird. So like I'm like getting ready for the next episode, but there's not a ton left to talk about in the first one, at least, unless there's key points y'all want to hit that I haven't yet. Like, is there anything y'all want to bring about the first episode?
I could bring up a million things, but I'll let y'all
bring them up. Yeah.
I mean, you see the Night's Watch, the way that like Damon takes care of all of that and just comes in, jury executioner.
Those are the
I-
ones with the
Oh, you
golden
mean
cloaks.
the gold cloaks?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
gold
the
cloaks.
gold
Yeah.
cloaks.
Yeah, very,
What did I say?
ruthless.
Oh, I said watch.
So what they were basically doing was just establishing dominance, right?
Yeah.
Well,
There.
with
Right.
the birth of the sun coming in the games, what he was basically doing was thinning the herd with all of the royalty that was coming. And so all of these higher names and knights and everything, what he was doing is basically cleaning the streets before, they brought in all these people. Now, what he was really doing was screwing with, his brother his brother and all the help at the table. And it was really just a way for him to kind of
Make
show
noise.
you what he's doing, what he's about,
Right. He
and
needed attention.
given the
He's
right
gonna
tools.
lash out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
I'm trying. Good.
Well, so what Jay Stubbs is talking about, and it's what ties
Oh.
the stories together, is that at a certain point in time, when Viserys knows that he's going to disinherit his brother and name Rhaenyra his heir, that he talks about our ancestor Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives. They didn't conquer Westeros just out of pure ambition alone, and it's that they knew that there was a threat coming from the north. And that is essentially foreshadowing the story of A Game of Thrones, and that's a real important part of it because the Targaryens are interwoven with dragon dreams, and you see it in the show. Viserys talks about his son being born with a crown, and he hears all the dragons roaring at once and the thunder of hooves on the battlefield. And all Targaryens have these prophetic dreams, and they feel like they see the future. So
Okay.
much so that many years in the past, a girl named Daenerys Targaryen dreamed of the doom of Valyria. It was the Valyrian freehold with a bunch of different dragon families that ruled over pretty much everything. And a great cataclysm befell them, and they saw it in their dreams first. That's what caused them to move over to Dragonstone and then subsequently conquer all of Westeros. So they take their prophetic dreams very, very important, and that they have this burden that they must basically prevent a cataclysm that is to befall the realm, and that's why they needed a unified Westeros under the Targaryens to be able to fight this great, evil that is supposed to come from the north. So there is a sense of burden on Viserys and on the Targaryens who know about this prophetic vision.
We'll see.
I think-
It's actually funny you say that. I'm sorry. Actually, go ahead, Ross.
Well, it's crazy that number one, that they hold that dream to such a high, believable thing that they have to uphold.
Right.
And I mean, yeah, we know it. We know it now. Anyone that's watched Game of Thrones or read the books knows why and when. What's crazy is that it's so far away, and they've been passing this thing down now for I don't know how long. I don't know if it said it, but it's just like it's law. It's secret law because they don't tell anybody, but it's law. And we know now that if the events at the end of Game of Thrones were to happen right now, nothing from the north would stand a chance.
Yeah.
There would
Like you
be
said,
no
this is them
fight.
at their peak, right?
Right.
And this has been one of the only real sources of criticism online from even book readers, is a lot of people felt like when they included this, that it was HBO trying to connect to the ending of Game of Thrones, which, as we already kind of went over, is a much maligned ending that really no one liked. I'm a believer, and I'm in the camp that this is George R.R. Martin and one of the showrunners, Ryan Condal, trying to take back the story from that botched ending that was Game of Thrones, and that they can try and re-steer towards the ending that George R. Martin is ultimately working towards in the books that have yet to come out. He's still working on The Winds of Winter, and then A Dream of Spring will be the sixth and final book, or the seventh and final book in the series. And the prophecy in Dragon Dreams and prophecy is a very important part of the entire A Song of Ice and Fire story. So I'm not worried. I don't view it as them trying to tie it together to the ending of Game of Thrones. I see them trying to reclaim this story that, for lack of whatever reason, got away from them.
That's actually a good way of looking at it. I mean, like, and it makes total sense. Like, why wouldn't you? Because that's what I was going to ask much earlier on. I just completely forgot. Like, with us knowing, like, Cody, especially you having read all the books and watched all the shows, me only of watching the shows, and then Greg and Sarah have not watched either of them.
Yeah.
And so it's weird what kind of knowledge you come to the table with and what that's going to do for something like that, because the names and, like, this whole episode, I was sitting there picking up on all the the famous last names and the places that they're talking about, and, like, all of that. Like, you don't have to create it in your head. You already know it because you did all that work with Game of Thrones, or the books, and it makes perfect sense to be able to put down the footwork and the legwork right now to come back and create the ultimate ending.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, can I say too that, like, okay, my favorite two franchises or universes: Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. Like, my favorite two universes to be in, like, stories, how great they are, everything else. This feels like kind of a combination of the both, to be truly honest with you. It's a Lord of the Rings look, but it's basically Star Wars story. It's a prophecy about a falling of a kingdom or a falling of a ruling, and something else coming into power and what you do to deal with that. So, and I get that. That's fine. That's a basic storyline for a great narrative, and I like it. But it kind of excites me because, like, I know Ross loves Star Wars, Sarah loves Star Wars, my friend Heather in the chat loves Star Wars, Heather loves Game of Thrones, Ross loves Game of Thrones, Cody loves Game of Thrones. So, Cody, you need to watch Star Wars. Sarah, me and you need to watch Game of Thrones. Then we'll all have watched all of this together, and then Lord of the Rings comes out. We're good to go.
I like that.
Yeah. And then we'll go find a real trivia place to go play trivia.
There you go.
Yeah, I might lose the Star Wars trivia. I'll say that right off the bat. But yeah, ultimately, I thought this was a great first episode. It already broke records. It was the most viewed premiere in HBO history. Like, it's already, they already renewed it for a season 2.
Wow. Okay. I mean, honestly, though, is that surprising? Like, I think within the last few years, if you come out with anything big like this, with, like, Game of Thrones or The Sopranos back in the day, or what's the biggest show, Walking Dead, it's going to be the biggest thing that comes out because so many people watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
the following is already there.
It's like saying you're surprised that a Marvel movie made $1 billion.
And by the way, just for clarification, I have seen Star Wars. I haven't been completely living under a rock. I have seen Star Wars. I haven't gotten deep into the lore like I have like a Song of Ice and Fire.
Can I tell you, Cody, right now, the movies are great and the main Skywalker storyline is great, but it's the deeper universe, the extra books, the television shows, the meat for these potatoes, is what you're gonna love. And if you like this universe like that, with that much history and that much story that makes sense, Star Wars. If you got into books and television shows about the movies, you would love it, dude.
Because I finally finished the was it Vader: Rise of the Dark Lord? That was really cool.
I bought that, but I haven't listened to it yet.
That one's really cool. I enjoy that one. But Darth Revan's still my OG. So.
Revan is, Revan's still my favorite of all the books that I've read that are non. Yeah, Thrawn's number 2. Yeah, Thrawn's right there with it. So, Yeah, you could have some really good stuff with that, but it's just funny how at like I'm sitting here listening to y'all talk about this, and it is so similar to that. Like it's,
Oh
and I'm
yeah.
like, well, I could definitely get into this because it seems like a combination of my two favorite things, basically of all
Oh,
time.
dude, let
Like,
me
there
help
you
you
go,
get further into it, man. Like, I love this shit, and there's so many more. Like, dude, you could. Okay, maybe I'm kind of showing my age here, but like growing up, the Harry Potter books were a big deal, and like kids would be like, "Oh, are you a Gryffindor? Are you a Ravenclaw?" And like, oh, you can delve into the world. Well, the reason why Game of Thrones is so popular, I feel like, is because it opened up the fantasy genre for basically for adults. Like I kind of feel like for a long time, fantasy was relegated to, knights and damsels in the tall tower needing rescue. That type of trope,
right?
and it wasn't really meant for a mature adult audience. Whereas Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire opens it up to an entirely new audience because of how gritty and real and violent and all the sexuality in it. And it's a realized medieval world that they're in. So it's very grounded in a lot of human emotions and tendencies and faults and all the things that drive humans is in Game of Thrones, and that's what I love about it the most is the characters. The characters are just incredible.
Heather says it's a way more gory and raunchy version of Star Wars,
Yeah.
and she's
I was gonna-
absolutely right.
I was gonna say the same thing. Like what it
Absolutely.
is, it's not about hope. It's about a twisted ass vision of hope
Mhm.
and thinking that you can be at top.
But I think to be honest with you, Star Wars originally was meant to be a lot more adult. I think I read that somewhere. I'm not sure. If you ever look at the pictures of Luke Skywalker with his shirt half off and Leia kind of laying up against him, I think
Yeah.
Star Wars originally was supposed to be a more adult movie series, and he toned it down a little bit, which
Yeah.
I
it's
think
on
things
Disney
are
now anyway,
well.
so it would have been toned
I'm not
down
gonna
a
go
little
too
bit.
deep in that, but I mean, it's always been the idea to be a serial made for kids. I mean, like
Okay.
it's supposed to be Buck Rogers-ish. Like that's always what they've gone towards.
I say I definitely could be wrong about that. It's just what I heard, but there is that one though. You know what I'm talking about. There's the one picture, the one like emblem
The
of
Macquarie
Luke
work.
holding
I
the
know what you're
lightsaber
talking
up,
about.
shirt half off, Leia kind of laying on him, almost naked, type deal. It's like, well, I wonder where and that could just be a fan who made that and was like, yeah, this is my Star Wars.
You know what kind of fan it would be? It would be a Game of Thrones fan.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah, right.
There you go.
So I have a question for all three of you. What
Okay.
what was your favorite character in the first episode, and what's something that you're most excited to see expanded upon going forward, or something that you're excited to learn, or what you're excited to see play out? So a character and like kind of what you're excited to see based off of this first show.
For me, it's the prince, the one who was doing the jousting, the one who said the term that was never said and lost his, I can't remember his name, but lost the right to be the heir, because he's the one that I always are drawn more to villains and anti-heroes, like guys who will push the edge or maybe sometimes walk over the line to be able to get done what they need to get done. My truck is totally a Sith truck. Like I made everything out to be Sith, everything. Like I think that I like this character a little more, but I feel like maybe he's misunderstood right now. I raised the point in the chat room with Heather about the character. You're meant to hate him, but if you're meant to hate him from the first episode, then watch out, because that may be something different, like a Negan type thing in Walking Dead. You were meant to hate that guy in the beginning, or Negan. Yeah, meant to hate that guy in the beginning, and then you end up kind of liking that guy, towards the end.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the kind of character for me that I'm most drawn to seeing what's going to happen with him, because whatever he does is going to cause the problem in this series. Like I can feel that. It may not be the wrong thing to do, but it's going to cause the problem. So
Okay, I like that. Damon's Damon is one of the most loved and feared man in all of Westeros, and
He's a
it's going
badass
to
dude,
become
that's why.
apparent as to why
Okay.
very soon. But yeah,
What's you, Ross? You got a
I
character?
share that sentiment. I mean, like that idea is exactly the way you explained it was exactly what was going on in my brain. The prince, like for the first episode, for you to find anything to like about him is difficult because everything that he's doing is brutal and inappropriate, and he's stabbing horses with well, not stabbing, but knocking lances, into horses to just screw with certain people. I mean, he's screwing with that the hand of the king's family hardcore. I mean, he straight up psychs all three of them in one sitting.
Yeah.
And like that was real. And like as you're watching it, you're like, this dude is an asshole.
Yeah.
So he definitely, as far as being interested in following a storyline, yeah, him. I want to see the Queen That Never Was interesting because she was quiet, but she seemed like she had a wealth of knowledge, and like you could see it on her face. And so I was, that background character. The princess was good. Now, is the princess and the friend, are they a thing, or are they just like?
So, what do you mean when you say are they a thing?
The one who took her little ring.
Yeah, the hand of the king's daughter. Like, I mean, like, so that's why I picked up on it, but at the same time, I'm like, well, maybe I'm not supposed to.
So, like, if you mean like romantically involved, not in that way. I mean, maybe it'll be that way. I'm not really anticipating that. Again, I know where this story goes, so it's like I don't want to give away too much.
Right.
All I'll say is this: truly, again, there's so many main characters, and that's what I love about George's work is you can find any main character to love and latch onto, and that could be the main character. But really, this story, at its essence, is going to be about those two women. It's going to be about Rhaenyra Targaryen and Alicent Hightower. Those are the two most primary characters in this entire show. So they are very important to everything that's going to continue to happen down the road.
So that's more, I mean, like, that's going to be well, I guess there's no good way to say it, but I guess like from Game of Thrones, I mean, but Starks and Lannisters,
Lannisters.
Yeah.
I said Starks and Pims.
Yeah. I mean, you sort of know where it's kind of heading if you piece it together. And again, I would just say just be surprised with the story. If you delve online, of course, you're going to find people that will spoil certain things, just because stuff is out there. But yeah, if you follow this show, it's going to start to lay the breadcrumbs. And at a certain point, you're going to be like, oh, shit. I see what's getting ready to build here. And it's not looking good, Yeah.
I'm all for it. Like, the thing about Game of Thrones that you can have characters that you want to follow, but really, you're only lying to yourself if you're not following every single character.
Yeah. Hey, can you highlight Kevin's comment, White Chocolate Espresso? Did y'all pick up on that too?
Oh, yeah.
The king's hand pimping out his daughter. Like, you heard how, he was basically like, hey, why don't you go and give comfort to the king?
Go make sure that he's doing okay.
Yeah, dude, it's like, and it was so blatantly obvious that he was, what he was asking her to essentially do.
And her trauma.
Yeah,
like,
and
you see her fingers and like the way that she's dealing with her stuff, and
right. There is, everyone has political machinations.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to be worried about, is that the Hightowers are essentially the most powerful, one of, if not the most powerful family in all of Westeros. The Hightowers.
So my last question that I have on this show, and coming from two huge Game of Thrones fans here, and Ross, I feel like I know your answer already because you're a Star Wars fan too. A lot of people complain about prequels, and it's like, well, I already know what's going to happen. Why do I care about this? I'm not that guy. Like, if I know a story, I'm really interested to find out how you got there, especially if I know how you got there, but I've never seen it. I'm really interested to figure it out. So, like, the prequels for Star Wars are great. Reading the books in between are great. So, are you less excited? Like, like when you hear they're making a prequel to Game of Thrones, like, how did it make you feel? Were you like, I'm all for this, or fuck no, I don't want this?
Well, having known what was in the World of Ice and Fire book and the Fire and Blood, I'm all for it. Because George is like the greatest world builder that I've ever known. Like, if there are some better, no doubt. But to me, George is the best that I've ever personally seen. And no, they have so many. Okay, so how about this? Here's an Easter egg. You remember when Alicent and Rhaenyra were sitting under the tree, and they were kind of Alicent was quizzing Rhaenyra about this old story that happened a long time ago, and Rhaenyra was just kind of dicking around, joking, not really taking the question seriously. But that show that they're talking about, Nymeria, and bringing all of her ships to Dorne, and then burning them so that way there was no more running from the Targaryens and the Valerians. That is a show that HBO has already shot the pilot for, and that also takes place in the broader world. It takes place even further in the past of this show. So the amount of world building, it's funny that we're talking about Star Wars and Marvel and DC and stuff like that. The amount of content that you see coming out of a Star Wars and a Marvel, you're going to be able to create so many different stories based in the World of Ice and Fire that they have a treasure trove of content that they're going to have available to them forever. Yeah. So, for example, Fire and Blood, the book that this show is based off of, that's part 1. There's a whole nother part 2 that goes into the whole entire latter half of the Targaryen lineage, which is just as crazy as the shit that we're reading right now.
That is nuts.
So,
yeah.
I know. So, dude, the amount of show or the amount of material that they're going to be able to have to fall back on is so much that I was so excited the moment that I knew that they were going to move away from the main series of books.
So, okay, you saying that actually raises a question that Raven Miss Heather, my friend, has in the chat here. Is she says she's pumped for the new season as long as the writers don't screw up the ending this time.
Yeah.
And like we said before, that was because they'd gotten past the books. So, Cody, you're saying these are actual books already written. So there shouldn't be any screwing up of this. So you adapt it to TV and then you go with it, right?
The beginning, middle, and the ending to this story is already told in Fire and Blood. So the literal reason that Game of Thrones went off the rails is not going to happen to them for this show. Okay. They already know all the events that they're building up to. And again, the original creator, George R.R. Martin, he is far more involved with House of the Dragon than he was even with Game of Thrones. So this is canonical. Even the book nerds and readers like myself, we're looking at this show as canonical, like finding out real events to the story that we didn't know about prior to. So there's something for everyone, man.
Yeah, I think that they have enough to do exactly what you just said, something for everyone. There's no reason why they can't. There's no reason why they shouldn't. When you asked the question, Greg, of like, how did I feel when they were bringing this out? Cautiously optimistic, I guess. But it's mainly because of like Lord of the Rings, really.
Right.
Lord of the Rings was such a short story compared to The Hobbit, and they came out with The Hobbit, and I was like, yeah, didn't really care a whole lot for The Hobbit. That could have been like, I've said it before, where I was at in my own life.
Yeah.
Like time-wise, watching it, everything else.
I feel the same way. I love Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit didn't do it for me. But
right. And so this kind of had like the same mentality. Like, I don't know what it's going to be about. Like, I have to see it number one. And like, now that I've seen the first episode, I'm like, all right, well, it's up to par. Like, everything, like they're throwing in everything that I know, that I'm comfortable with, the universe, like everything seems okay. So I'm way on board with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, was there anything? Oh, good.
Well, no, I'm kind of off topic a little bit. Greg, I know you're a big time Lord of the Rings fan. Are you excited about the Rings of Power?
I am, but I'm tempering my expectations because once again, like I did not like the Hobbit series, like of movies, as much as I did Lord of the Rings. And
Yeah.
it may be like Ross says, it may be the time of my life. I know when Lord of the Rings came out, or whenever it was big for me at least, like I didn't have cable in college, and I probably watched Return of the King 75 times in a row. So like I loved that series, those movies. And maybe that was what didn't do it for me with The Hobbit. But what I see in this so far, it looks really good. And I'm going into it with high hopes, but no expectations. Because if I don't like it, I still love the three Lord of the Rings movies. And I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
It's looking
they
a lot
never made
better.
anything else about it, I'd be fine with that. But they are, so hopefully it's good. You know?
I was extremely dissatisfied with the first couple trailers, the teasers and stuff they were throwing out there. But actually, that right there is why I didn't like the CGI that they had in it. So
well, so apparently, this show has the budget bigger than the biggest movie ever. Like the budget for Rings of Power is literally $1 billion, to the point that Amazon has already said if this show doesn't work out for them, well, if this doesn't work out, then our streaming service doesn't work out. Like that's how much money they have put into this show for them.
That means you have to make $2 billion off it before you start turning a profit.
Yeah, how does that even work?
I have already heard that they are testing the waters to sell, if not even further than that now, to sell the rights to continue on, like all of the rights to Lord of the Rings.
Ooh.
All of them.
To who?
Well, Disney, here you go.
Yeah.
Come on, Disney.
Dude,
Go ahead and put that money out there. You know you're gonna buy it. It's a big franchise. So
one day Disney's gonna own Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. Probably.
They have the
Dude, the mouse is gonna be on the dollar bill, bro.
Yeah, right.
The mouse is powerful.
Disney owns everything.
Well, fellas, Sarah has sat here the entire time we have broke this down patiently. Is there anything else y'all want to talk about episode 1 of Hot D?
I mean, no, that's it.
I'm loving y'all's excitement.
It's good. It really is.
It really is good. The first episode, you know, I'm excited for what's happening too. I can't wait until I have more knowledge of this universe to be able to discuss it with y'all. And I think that going into this every week, there's not a lot of shows that I like being episodic, but I kind of like this being episode, like every week type dropping, because I don't know. I feel like more people are talking about this show with me than anything else I've seen in a long time. Like I've had more people ask me if I'm watching this show than anything else.
Oh yeah,
it's got a following.
Yeah.
So are you guys gonna do this every week? You're gonna talk a little bit about.
We're gonna cover it every week. Yeah. So just hop on the show after the free for all every week and talk to us about it. We're good.
I'm here, man. And like I said, like I'm trying to get as many people as I know like to watch this show because I love it, dude. I can talk about this shit for hours. Like, I could talk even more. But you guys have a show. I know everyone's trying to go. It's like this type of stuff is like my favorite kind of stories. These in-depth fantasy stories with fantastic characters. So yeah, I love it, man. And by the way, as someone who knows where this is going, oh, dude, buckle up. You're about to go on. Like, there are some moments that happened early in the story that rivals shit that was, viral moments of Game of Thrones. Like, it's that crazy. So
that is crazy.
Dude,
it's definitely going to make me have to go back and watch Game of Thrones to completion here. And that's going to put me behind on Rebels, just so y'all know.
Oh, come on, Greg.
Well, tell me, which one, Rebels or Game of Thrones?
It's never going to happen, Ross.
I've got a lot of Star Wars.
It's
going to happen one day.
No, it's not, dude.
One day. I already watched the first season, so I just got, 3 seasons left?
I'm so disappointed.
Something like that. Don't say
it's almost like the Flash movie. I'm not going to believe it until I'm sitting in the theater in the end credits roll.
Professor in the chat. Dude,
Tony's here. What's up, man? Dude, we got an influx of people here. What's going on, y'all?
They just left. They just finished the show. And then Tony's on this dumbass. Probably watching overrated, dude. Tony is just a contrarian. Tony will say shit just because he knows that most people disagree with. I'm convinced. Either that you're saying it just to piss me off, and I don't put
A
that
little bit of
past
both,
you.
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So he's
trying to give me
rewatching
the
Game of
hype.
Thrones, or not rewatching. Tony, are you rewatching, or are you okay? He does say rewatching. Okay, so you've seen it before. Well, obviously, if you've seen it before and you're watching it again, it can't be that overrated, can it?
I don't know if
I
he
mean,
ever
if
saw
you're
the
gonna give it
whole
a second
thing.
watch.
Yeah, and dude, he's to understand that it's just hot women showing their boobs, and that's why people love the show. That's how, dude, you can literally find naked breasts anywhere on the internet, dude. You're not going to Game of Thrones just for that. Like,
That's not what Hot D's
Exactly.
about.
You get
Hot
called
D's
out,
about something
dude.
else.
You know.
Yeah.
So
So
Tony
this
says
is
he's
my
prepping
message,
for House of
man.
the Dragon. Have you not, Tony? You haven't watched the first episode yet of House of the Dragon? We just broke it down. I don't think there's any more
I
spoilers
mean,
we're
like-
gonna have out there, but
He's late
Good.
to everything.
Yeah.
Tony is the type of guy that something will be popular, and then 5 years later, oh, dude, this is the greatest thing ever, man. Why did no one tell me about this?
Everyone
Yeah,
was
I'm
talking about it. You just weren't listening.
Yeah,
so
right?
Dan Floyd tells me I should watch Rebels, finish watching Rebels before I watch Game of Thrones. Wow.
Here's what's going to happen. Let me tell you this right now. If you don't finish watching Rebels, you're going to be lost in the Ahsoka show. And chances are you're going to be watching that show before you ever get to like finishing.
Now hold on. I've read a lot of other stuff. Am I going to be lost in the Ahsoka show because I've read the Thrawn books and everything else? Like, will I be
Rebels is
completely
an
lost,
important-
or
Rebels is an important piece to that.
How about this,
Okay.
Greg? I agree with
Okay.
them because you don't need Game of Thrones right now. Like,
No.
I mean, House of the Dragon, to me, can be enough. Like, it's going to give you all of Westeros, all the Targaryen powers, all the dragons, and Game of Thrones will be there for you literally as long as you need it to be.
this is true?
Because it's already over. So,
Game
yeah.
of Thrones is
yeah.
going to be your fix once this
Yeah,
show's
so
over.
I would say Rebels and House of the Dragon.
Yeah. And Dan Floyd in the chat says that me and Tony were going to rewatch Spartacus. You're right. We did just hatch that plan like 3 days ago, though.
That's a good show.
So we definitely are, and I definitely want to cover Spartacus because that's a phenomenal show. But that will be something in the future for sure. So, and CK says subscriber shame. I haven't even checked. Like we have quite a few people in the chat room now. Let's see. Well, I looked at y'all's chat. Y'all had 137 thumbs up. You know what? 12 people watching, 18 thumbs up. I appreciate it, y'all. Thank you. Give it a like, give it a share. We're here every week talking about all this kind of stuff, geeky stuff. So, was there anything else y'all wanted to bring up about this episode?
Oh my God, what's left?
Yeah, I was just saying, I think we broke down all the key points.
Oh, we could probably find something.
Oh,
Oh, we
sure.
definitely could. Yeah.
No, I think
Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up then. We're going to continue to cover this every week. Cody, we normally don't have a Friday game. So I know you have the Friday free for all, but usually it's not a
Right.
Friday game. So it makes it a little easier. We'll save it for the end of the episode every week. You want to hop on, talk about this? I'm down for it.
I'm
And once
down.
again, come in the chat room, check it out. And if you want to get on the show, let me know. We'll see what we can do.
Absolutely. Man, it was
But,
great being back on the show, and love Geeks Chasing Squirrels. Good talking with you, Greg, Ross, Sarah. Great talking to you all as always. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward to doing this every Friday, man. Chilling
Well,
with you guys.
real quick, tell them where they can find you at, buddy.
Yeah, at Cody Lack on Twitter, CODYLAC. You can find my stuff at drafttech.com, all my written work. Yeah, that's it, man.
All right.
Find me on C3.
Well, this is my homeboy. We do a lot of Panthers talk, and like you said,
Oh,
check him
yeah.
out at C3. I'm right there with him. It's a lot of good stuff. We're doing big things on the C3 Panthers podcast. Even if you're not a Panthers fan, you can come have a good time if you like football. So check us out.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
putting a
that's
lot of
it.
stuff out there.
All right, boys.
Cody, I do
Dirk.
appreciate it, bud.
Dirk
That's
Hodges.
All right, last topic here. So we got through everything else. I know that the House of the Dragon was going to be the biggest thing this week, but last thing on the docket, and definitely not the worst thing on the docket, is season 3 of Lower Decks came out today. This is a show Sarah introduced me to. I would have never otherwise watched it, but I'm glad that I am now. And Sarah, you mentioned to me earlier that season 3 opened up great, and I agree. Really great episode. Had a great time watching it. Give me your thoughts. I haven't heard from you in like an hour.
No shit. Well, let me ask you this: have you seen First Contact?
No, I don't think so. Maybe. No, I don't think so.
It was basically like because you had generation. It's like the next generation movies. You had Generations, and then First Contact, Insurrection. That kind of thing. Well, this one really touched on First Contact because do you have any idea who? Was it Ephraim Cochrane? Do you have any idea who that is? He in the Star Trek universe. He was the one that did the first like warp drive. Because so that ship that you saw,
Huh?
that looked like Bezos' ship. Yeah.
Gotta win. Okay.
So when it went out and it had like the two nacelles that popped out and went to that was the first like warp propelled ship.
I figured there were going to be Easter eggs like that, and I knew I wanted to ask you whenever we saw it. I was like, "There's got to be something in here that I'm not seeing."
So that's what was so
they
funny.
know
We're talking about the
about,
21st century, with Bozeman, Montana.
Right, they were going to like almost like a medieval times type thing, like
because
Renaissance
basically
fair.
once Cochrane had that first warp flight, that was when the Vulcans took notice, and that was literally the first time that the Vulcans like came and met, like visited Earth, because then they realized, okay, well, people of Earth have warp drive capability, so then we can talk to them because they're kind of sort of maybe to our level.
Yeah, it's kind of like you can't trade with people that can't make it to you. So now that we can trade with you, like now we need to talk.
Well, and they touch on that too, and just even the Star Trek movies that I've watched, where it's like if
Prime Directive.
Yeah, exactly. You can't mess with them until they've shown you that you're ready
to a certain level. Yeah.
So.
Well, that's
they
what
even
the
say that
Prime Directive turned into. Since now we know that's doing weird things.
Well, this was prior to Strange New World, so it was like this is what was already kind of in the mix or in the what they gave you thus far. So
now, was this actually Cromwell's voice? Because it sounded 100% like him.
If you watch like the very end credits, it is him.
It is him. Okay.
Yeah. I thought it was hilarious because I was like, "Oh my god!" Because you saw Tandy and Rutherford walking around with a hat on.
Well, I love the characters in this show. Like, I really, really do, man. It's great. Like, Jack Quaid does such a great job with his character. Like the voiceover, I can see him talking while I hear it. It's so amazing to hear,
And the girls in the vineyard, I'm like,
yes.
And can I ask too, like? They're pulling grapes, or not? Excuse me. They're pulling raisins from the vineyard. Isn't a raisin just a dried up grape?
So they had the grapes. So I guess it's like they're just drying them out to create raisins. And you don't.
That's the thing. Like, if you have a vineyard and everyone wants wine, he's the person making raisins. Like that. Like that's him described.
Yeah. And I love too whenever he finally got to like the whole the point of this episode, they're trying to get to his logs so that way he can figure out that they can free his or her mother and then prove her innocence, and they finally get to his logs and it's all this jokey shit, and I'm like, yeah, that's him, that's this character right here. Like, I love it.
And then Mariner, she kind of shows a little vulnerability because she like loses her shit, and then she's like, I just feel so helpless, I can't do it. I'm like, okay.
Isn't Mariner always kind of on edge though? Like not on edge, but like always kind of like at that point where like you look like if one thing happens, she could break.
I equate her to like a human Klingon, if that makes any sense, because she's like so like can whoop some ass on like just the littlest thing, but she's just like this freaking warrior. She always like approaches things like I'm a badass, that kind of thing. So that's what I've always equated her to.
She's definitely one of the best characters in the show. I mean, she's the lead character in the show. One of the best in the show. Trying to think what else about this one stood out really, but like I was really impressed with this because like it gave me a story from beginning to end that wrapped up completely. You have a mission to accomplish in this one, and you see that that's the point of this show is to free or figure out who's framed her mother. For what happened? Blowing up a planet?
Yeah, the Packwood planet. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And the Packwoods are the ones that are not very smart.
Yeah. I'd like to know more about it. I feel like they just kind of fixed it right at the end, and I want to know why, because I'm hoping they're going to have more Packlets because they're always fun. You know,
Weren't the Packlets in an episode before, and they were a lot stupider?
oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Does it show that they're evolving, maybe, or is it just a higher?
No,
group of
someone's probably trying to like Palpatine them. You know, like someone is out there pulling strings and like using the Packlets for fun.
Yeah, because I can't understand how they haven't like erased their own civilization.
Right. They're pretty stupid, so I can definitely see that. I don't know where the show's going in the future. I don't know. I don't think that. Have we had an underlying theme through the first 2 seasons that we think is going to carry over in the 3rd season?
Not really.
Like, or is it just kind of a episode of the week type thing? Well, the seasons have a theme, but it's not really like one story being told across multiple seasons. You know what I mean?
I don't think so. I think it's just more of like just the daily lives of what those 4 actually go through.
You could almost pick up from right here and be okay if you wanted to.
I mean, I really haven't seen anything that's like an underlying. I mean, you might have with Mariner, how she's always bucking the system and trying to get more into Starfleet and trying to but still she's like, no, that's not about to happen. Everybody has their own little personal journey.
There's going to be an anchoring point here, and it's going to be with Strange New Worlds, and I think that's going to be the one thing that's going to kind of like make you. It's going to be like the one place you can probably pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You think they're going to tie in Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks?
I know that they're going to. They said so at San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, okay.
There's going to be Strange New World characters animated into Lower Decks, and there's going to be live action Lower Decks characters in Strange New Worlds.
Please get Jack Quaid to play.
I believe that,
that would be.
You'll have him,
phenomenal.
and then you'll have a live action Mariner too.
That would be so phenomenal
All
to get those 2
4
characters.
All 4 of them.
Yeah, give me all 4. Hell yes, give me all 4. That would be phenomenal. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. It's like Jetsons meet Flintstones.
And we'll make sure that Jack Quaid has his, just the right amount of purple
hair with the right hair dye because nobody knows that he died. Right.
Let's see, him and Pike's hair have a fight.
That'd be pretty phenomenal. Yeah. But now y'all have introduced me to the story.
But it was interesting that they mentioned Tuvok in this one too.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Which I mean, I don't really know how old he is. So
I missed that because I don't know what we're talking about. Like
you saw the Vulcan dude that had like the mind meld or the hands on the one face.
They are going to Deep Space Nine.
Deep Space
Nine. Tuvok's from Voyager.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And DS9.
Well, I know you guys have introduced me to Star Trek. Well, I mean, I watched the new Calvin timeline movies and love those, but you guys have really had me dive into Star Trek, and it's awesome because y'all are huge fans, and there is a whole universe here to love and really appreciate. And this show is a parody of the series for sure, but it's well done. Great voice actors. The characters do a good job, and it's really cool. They're tying it into live action shows now, and vice versa. Live action shows it is. That's an awesome ability to have in a universe.
Yeah.
This is the kind of stuff that when I was a kid we rarely saw, but you see it all the time now. Everything's connected for everybody. There's no like gates or bars. Like you can go anywhere. Like anything can be part of anything. And I absolutely love it. It's really, really cool to see.
All connected.
Was there anything else? I mean, it's hard to kind of talk about this because these are like 30-minute cartoon episodes that have plot, but they're not really like. It's just fun to watch. Is there anything else you want to say about this?
To me, I love the Easter eggs they put in it. That's my thing. That's what I love because I'm just and like I told you guys throughout, I'm like, I see this, and this, and I'm like, ooh, that's yay, that.
Well, what's funny is I don't know the Easter eggs, but when I see something, I notice. I'm like, I bet that's an Easter egg. Like, okay, let me ask you, when they crashed their ship back onto the what's the name of their big ships?
Cerritos.
When they crashed their ship that Mariner sent them away in, back on the ship, and it rolled over, it had a name on it. Matthew something. It was the name of the ship. Was that something? Was that an Easter egg? It had to be. There's no reason you have a Matthew something on there. It's not an Easter egg, I'm thinking. But I don't know.
I didn't even see that one.
Okay. Well, maybe I
glanced at it. But like I said, I was looking on my phone and kind of like I really wasn't paying as much attention. But yeah, there was Usually, I mean, they'll put like names and stuff on it. It's just like I was trying to notice, like in the very beginning, like when it had like news, I was trying to look at what was scrolling across to see if I was going to catch anything. But like I said, I mean, this series, I mean, it puts a lot of Easter eggs in there, and like I said, that's what I love about it, because it's putting it in that universe that if you have any knowledge of Star Trek at all, of any of the other, whether it be Next Generation, Voyager, or whatever, it'll throw something in there, and you're like, oh, that's cool, But it's like little mini tie-ins.
Well, that's what makes the big fans love it so much. Like you can put Easter eggs in anything that I loved as a childhood, or in my childhood, or I've loved my whole life. And even if it's not that great, if you have little Easter eggs in there for me of stuff that I can pick up and be like, oh, I know that, and you probably don't. I love it. Like that feeling. Maybe it's me.
It's let me teach you. Let me show you these things. Yes. Come into the world, in the realm.
But no, I'm absolutely loving this series, and I can't wait to see how they tie the two together, how they tie this into other stuff. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that's going to be big. That's going to be big.
Yes.
Well, my cup runneth dry. My notebook is empty. I'm out of everything. Was there anything else y'all want to bring up tonight about anything?
No, sir. We got so much more coming.
We do. We have a whole lot coming down the chute. I was talking to somebody about that today. I can't remember who. I think I was talking to Cody about that today, as a matter of fact. He's talking about all the stuff that we're talking about. I was like, yeah, just wait. There's always more coming out. So this Sunday, 4 p.m., Rogue One, me, Ross, Sarah, The Grand, Winston-Salem, luxury reclining seats. It's going to be fantastic. I can't wait. In anticipation for Andor coming out soon. So we're going to do a watch together on Sunday. And if I can maybe talk them into it, maybe we'll do a live podcast together at my house. We'll have to see what happens, how the show ends. But I know Sarah and Ross got a long way to drive from this area, so I don't want to put them in that kind
of. Mine's not as bad as Ross's.
Huh?
Oh.
Well, they're relatively close to the same. I think I'm like the center point of y'all two. I think it's pretty close to it. Well, I don't know. It's been a while since I drove out where Ross is at right now. So anyway, we're going to do that. We are going to do a review of Rogue One next week in anticipation for Andor coming out. Continue coverage of every show that we're watching right now as long as it's going. And anything new that pops up between now and then, we're going to cover. We don't break news. We just react to it.
Lord of the Rings starts next week.
Lord of the Rings starts next week. So that'll be on the docket for next week. Yeah, things are going to start to get busier. That's for sure. But check us out. Give us a like. Give us a subscribe.
Summer's over, man. School's back in.
Yeah. If there's something you want to watch or want us to watch or want to cover with us, let us know. We'll work with that. I know Tony wants to do Spartacus, which is a phenomenal show. I will rewatch that and do a series with him on that and cover that. But we'd like to have fan interaction. We had a lot of fans come in tonight, and I really appreciate that. C3 fans, y'all keep coming in. Like I said, this show grows as much as fans do with it. It's based on what the C3 does, and we do the same kind of thing. We just want fan interaction. We want to have a good time talking about things we love. So, and that's all we're here to do. So, yeah. Sarah, where can they find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at My Lady Kitten, and pretty much here Friday nights. That's pretty much it.
Ross?
Here, baby.
Okay. That's right. And, some Thursdays, trivia, Kernersville. We'll be there.
I don't know.
Y'all got kind of shamed. But you got to show your faces again and redeem yourself. I mean, come on.
Practice, exactly.
I'm gonna expand the bubble. I'm gonna look for more pop culture stuff.
Makes sense. I'm down. Well, you can find me at the Bat8052 on Twitter. It's my personal handle. Check out GCS Podcast 1 is the show handle. We are live every Friday around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, unless there's something that comes up and we can't record, or we do it on a Sunday or Saturday. But we try to let you know when that happens. Anyway, we're here every week. Thank y'all very much. Panthers won tonight. That's awesome. Football is almost here. Lord of the Rings is almost here. We have so much stuff coming out. Y'all keep coming back. Till next week. Keep pounding.
Bye, guys.
Later.